Chapter 1298. The experts from the dangerous lands all felt a chill at this moment. They all narrowed their eyes, and terrifying cold lightning shot out from their pupils, tearing apart the void. They stared at the smooth surface at the end of the plateau, at that still world. But the more they stared, the more their hearts palpitated. It was as if an abyss had automatically formed in the depths of their hearts. They were sinking, perplexed, and were about to fall forever. Finally, their eyes turned into great Tao symbols. They all shook their heads, not daring to look anymore. Even their souls were throbbing in disbelief. Seeing this, Number 9 propped himself on the great flag and sighed in the end. It seems like you don't know what is here at all. You don't know about that legendary period, and it is even more impossible for you to know about that legendary person. At most, you have heard a thing or two from your ancestors. However, I believe that even your ancestors did not have the qualifications to come here and make a pilgrimage. They did not have the qualifications to kneel here. Towards the end, he became more and more domineering. His eyes blossomed with fiery light as if he was recalling a period of time, a legend that had long since ceased to exist. His hair scattered behind him. He was like an unrivaled great demon king, his aura devouring the world. With the great flag in his hand, it was as if he was going to shatter the starry seas of the universe and suppress the world. However, even an existence as powerful as Number 9 was so reverent towards this place. One couldn't help but be shocked. What was hidden here, and what was buried here? Up ahead, the creatures from the Forbidden Land were all standing in the sky, overflowing blood energy. Every one of them was incomparably powerful, indistinct and hazy. They were all like war demons that had crossed realms, incomparably dignified. A creature whose silhouette could only be seen said, "You underestimate us too much." The Forbidden Land was established in the world of the living, and even the world had been destroyed before. However, our race still exists. Why is this so? There is a deeper and world-shaking reason. Another expert from the dangerous lands opened his mouth, his eyes like the abyss. No matter what is here, no matter how powerful it is, compared to the things we have come into contact with and understood, it is still difficult to say which is stronger and which is weaker. What else is there to say? Kill them all. At Number 9's side, a withered figure appeared, as if he was floating. In reality, he was a piece of human skin, and he was called Number 2. This human skin had existed for an extremely long time. After it swelled up, it was also very strange and mysterious. Could it be that they were all shed by the same person? The eyes of an expert from a restricted region flickered continuously. He was a bit doubtful, feeling a bit nervous. If this was the case, then what about that true creature? Number 3, Number 6, the Taotai blood feast has begun. What are you waiting for? Let's go. Number 9 shouted, stroking the great flag in his hand. The flagpole was simple and unadorned, the flag's surface tattered, but now that it was unfurled, it was as if it was going to shatter the endless space-time. The scene here was too terrifying. Chaotic energy pervaded the air, and there were countless great Tao fragments. The creatures from the restricted regions all felt restraining fear. They stared at this tattered banner. Number 3 and Number 6 both appeared silently. Their pupils were all green as they stared at the experts from the Forbidden Lands. However, when they looked at Number 9, their gazes were also gloomy and full of distrust. Number 9 said, "This time, it's definitely a rare race, their blood reaching the heavens. It can help you cultivate and cross the 10,000 spirit blood drawing tribulation." Number 6 carried great resentment as he said, "Like hell, I'll believe you. You rotten old man. You're too evil." Number 9 was speechless. He really wanted to say that in terms of age, the two of you were even older than him, all right? Who is a rotten old man here? Number 3 was also extremely resentful, spitting out a lump of copper in front of everyone. His hands covered his cheeks, his teeth still in intense pain. Kill. In the end, Number 2 couldn't watch on anymore, the first to slaughter his way out. He was like a Kuin Pung spreading its wings, left hand pitch black like ink, right hand spotlessly white like jade. Fist imprints were unmatched, blasting through heaven and earth, striking towards the two on the other side. He was just one person, yet he was going to kill two great experts from the Forbidden Lands. However, the two on the other side really weren't ordinary people, exceptionally powerful. One of them directly released two streaks of cross-shaped starlight. With a Hong sound, heaven and earth were cut apart. The cross-shaped starry river appeared, order patterns interweaving in the sky. This place became a danger zone covered in great Tao laws. Get lost! Number 2 roared, his hair flying about, his temper fiery to the point where he was about to explode. He smashed over angrily, the black and white fists approaching, erupting with the power to tear apart the universe. This was also the first mountain, densely covered in traces from endless years ago, supreme patterns embedded in the mountains, rivers, and earth. Otherwise, this type of battle would directly destroy everything here, all living things no longer existing. Despite this, a terrifying great explosion still happened here. Dazzling fist radiance collided with the cross-shaped starry river, tearing apart the barrier of light, rushing into outer space. Even the people outside could see the light overflowing into the heavens, the starry sky becoming dim, great stars extinguished. How long? Number 2 was too ferocious, blasting through the cross-shaped starry river, blasting that person until he coughed out large mouthfuls of blood, forcing him to retreat. Number 2 chased after him, at the same time starting to attack the other person. Kill, this time I want that thick thigh. Number 3 shouted, also taking action, slaughtering toward an elder. That elder was extremely tall, towering on the plateau, incomparably cold. His eyes were like 2 golden lamps burning the heavens, shining through the endless blood energy. Who are you glaring at? Number 3 rushed over murderously. This elder was extremely terrifying, dressed in golden armor. At this moment, he erupted, as if a creature from the creation of the world emerged from primal chaos, innately valiant and unmatched. When Number 3's fist collided with his palm, heaven and earth collapsed, ghosts wept and deities howled. Heaven and earth, the mountains and rivers were all covered in the color of blood. The two fought intensely. I'm also coming. Number 6 also moved, extremely greedy, choosing 2 targets, directly slaughtering his way over. Number 9 released a long roar, also starting to take action. His opponent was extremely difficult to deal with, incomparably powerful, exceeding his expectations. That was a middle-aged man, his head full of thick hair, a pair of silver eyes, as if they ignited the endless void, able to see through all fabrications. The most terrifying thing was that there were 4 rings of light around his body, one pitch black like ink, one dark red like blood, one terrifying like gray, and the 4th deathly white. The 4 rings of light weren't divine at all, instead extremely sinister, carrying endless baleful energy. He released a light shout, like the cry of a heavenly bird. Behind him, the void image of a 4th tribulation sparrow appeared. This was a creature from the 11th restricted area, an ancient 4th tribulation sparrow. The so-called 4th tribulation sparrow. This race had endured 4 great eras, contaminated with the aura of the world's great tribulation. The 4 layers of light around the 4th tribulation sparrow contained this kind of power, one of the race's powerful trump cards. This was because the rings of light that carried the aura of the 4 great worlds tribulation made it seem as if they were impervious to all techniques, and great tribulations couldn't descend upon them. That was why when Number 9's fist smashed over, the first strike couldn't even move it, almost causing it to suffer loss. Kill! The 4th tribulation sparrow shouted loudly, transforming into its original form, its 4-colored feathers identical to the 4 rings of light around its body, surging with bitter, baleful energy, incomparably terrifying. When it opened its mouth, a beam of light condensed with the power of the 4 tribulations. This was a bit frightening. It was difficult for outsiders to injure it, but it was a great threat to others, its destructive power terrifying. After experiencing 4 great worlds' tribulations, it refined an undying body? I really don't believe it. In terms of the great tribulations aura, who can compare to it? Number 9 shouted. In his hand, the tattered flag fiercely swung forward, causing the heavens to collapse, the earth to split, and the sky to collapse. Wisps of aura pervaded the air, truly terrifying beyond compare. With a boom, the 4 rings of light around the 4th tribulation sparrow's body were all pierced through. It spat out a mouthful of blood and flew out horizontally, revealing an expression of shock as it stared at the large flag. However, Number 9 didn't wave that special large flag again, directly stabbing it into the ground, stabilizing the mountains and rivers, and guarding the fractured space. He soared into the sky, chasing after the 4th tribulation sparrow, directly attacking it. You want to fight me with your bare hands? The 4th tribulation sparrow was incomparably cold. Although its protective tribulation light was directly blasted through by the large flag, it was still incomparably confident. According to its understanding, other than weapons that had experienced the great world's destruction and weapons that were similarly contaminated with the power of the great world's tribulations, it was very difficult for other weapons to harm it. The moment my gaze flashes, the tribulation will rise and fall. Number 9 shouted. At this moment, its eyes were no longer lush green, but golden light that could burn the heavens. It was simply too terrifying, shooting out 2 shocking and resplendent beams of light, like world-destroying flames. The 4th tribulation sparrow was horrified, feeling that this wasn't Number 9's gaze. It was like a pair of eyes that had been summoned from the unseen world and were staring at it. Then, it sensed that this seemed to be the wisps of aura that Number 9 had absorbed from the smooth fracture behind it, leaving it aghast. What exactly was in that smooth fracture? Number 9 had only absorbed a wisp of aura. Yet it was already like this? Boom! As expected, after Number 9 absorbed that wisp of aura, golden beams of light shot out from his eyes, piercing through the 4th tribulation sparrow's 4 rings of light, directly tearing apart its protective light barrier. Roar! Number 9 roared loudly, his head of disheveled hair fluttering in the wind. He threw punch after punch, bombarding the gap in the torn light barrier. He fought with his physical body, forcefully confronting the 4th tribulation sparrow, who was known to have cultivated an immortal body. Bang, bang, bang. In this bloody and intense battle, even the 4th tribulation sparrow, who was known to have an immortal body, was beaten until it coughed up blood. Its body swayed, and feathers continuously flew out. Every falling feather would tear apart the heaven and earth. It carried incomparable energy and burst forth with a destructive aura. Enough! The 4th tribulation sparrow shouted angrily. It disappeared from its original spot with an illusion annihilation, dodging out of the way. It wanted to regroup and kill Number 9 again. How can this be? It's not over yet. Number 9 shouted. His fist imprints were like rainbows as he closed in once again at an inconceivable speed. Accompanied by fragments of time, a cluster of feathers was pulled up, dripping with blood. Die! The 4th tribulation sparrow was furious. It finally dodged and transformed into its human form. At this moment, its body shone, and 4 soft, sonorous sounds rang out behind it, intimidating the heaven and earth. I have the heaven-opening 4 swords, 1 sword to slay 10,000 immortals. The 4th tribulation sparrow shouted, Kill! Its first sword rose from its back and flew out of its scabbard. Black light erupted as if it was really going to massacre the immortals. It was boundlessly terrifying. Who are you going to slay? Standing here, my body is unrivaled. Number 9 was extremely cold and didn't seem to care in the slightest. He opened his mouth and circulated a special breathing technique, absorbing the essence from the smooth world behind him. The pores all over his body were absorbing strands of special energy matter. His fist blasted through heaven and earth, barehandedly resisting the first heaven-opening sword. There were countless great Tao symbols in this area. Sword light erupted, and the fist light even submerged the mountains, rivers, and stars. Standing here, my body is unrivaled, innately undefeated. Number 2 also shouted in the distance. Following that, number 3 and number 6 also shouted. Their auras erupted, and their strength rose sharply. Whoa! Suddenly, it was as if someone was roaring and singing softly. Following that, a terrifying flute sound rang out. It was as if it was going to kill all life and slaughter the great world. Primal Chaos, 10,000 Spirit Tribulation, Crossing Song. At this moment, even number 9 was shocked. He felt a wave of fear and trepidation. As expected, there were exceptional experts nearby. Quite a few people came from the restricted region, and there were peak experts coming down. In the past, this type of wondrous technique was abbreviated as the Primal Chaos Tribulation Crossing Song. It was ranked 3rd, and it was also ranked 2nd. It was extremely mysterious and unfathomable. Back then, number 9 searched for a long time, but he couldn't find it. This type of wondrous technique disappeared into the long river of history. He didn't expect that someone would blow the Primal Chaos Tribulation Crossing Song today. The most terrifying aspect of this wondrous technique wasn't its single destructive power, but rather its ability to reverse the battle situation. In the distant past, there were people who calculated that as long as it was blown, those in the same camp would almost always win a great victory. It was an extremely sinister and terrifying Primal Chaos Tribulation Crossing Song. It was incomparably mysterious, making even number 9's eyes red. Who would have thought that it would sound here today? It was clear that someone had entered the first mountain again. The number of experts invading the restricted region was even more terrifying than they had imagined. Are you bullying us because we have fewer people? Which vegetarians are you? Come out. Number 9 shouted loudly. When this voice sounded, the experts from the great restricted regions all felt a bit dizzy. They felt a chill run down their backs. They were guessing inwardly that it couldn't really be 9 brothers, right? Even those as powerful as them were silently cursing. This was truly unbearable. In the distance, there was indeed a great grave that exploded. The grass on top of the grave was already several zhang tall. 2 more sets of human skin floated out. Fight to the death. Who's scared of who? At this time, an expert from a restricted region shouted, his voice extremely loud. In that direction, an incomparably terrifying elder from a restricted region stood there. Every single hair on his body released divine chains of order, magical force matchless. He was extremely powerful, and he was also extremely direct. He spoke a portion of the truth in front of everyone. Times have changed. There are some great realm walls that have already been silently opened. The creatures of the restricted regions are becoming stronger with each generation. Perhaps the first mountain once had a secret of that period of time, a legend, something left behind by that person. However, times have changed. The great world has reincarnated. Even the most resplendent cannot remain brilliant forever. In the end, it will be extinguished, surpassed by others, even buried. Today, this place will be revealed. That restricted region expert's voice was extremely grand and also ruthless, even more so extremely cold. Behind the restricted regions, there really is something connected. Has the tip of the iceberg finally been revealed? Number 9 said softly. Then he suddenly raised his head and said, when the legend disappears like smoke into thin air, when you are completely forgotten by the people of this world, when you no longer exist from past to present, when those creatures descend again, perhaps a strand of your brilliance will be released once again. Chapter 1299. On the other side, figures stood tall one after another, all of them clad in ancient armor. They were silent and motionless, and every single one of them emitted a world-shaking blood energy. Even the mountains and rivers were dyed dark red. Although they didn't move and were like ancient fossils, they were incomparably intimidating. The mountains and rivers were cracking, and the starry skies were trembling. The atmosphere was tense and oppressive. These creatures from the Forbidden Lands were unconvinced. They had looked down on one era after another and watched the rise and fall of the Yang realm. After so many years had passed, no one dared to look down on them like this. Blood sacrifice us to pay respect to that legendary person. Someone's voice was cold. At this moment, his pupils had actually turned into a terrifying silver cross symbol. He laughed, revealing a mouthful of snow-white teeth. However, this made him seem even more awe-inspiring. I want to see what's so special about the past that should have long passed away and buried in the graveyard. Well, why does he have to do this? Behind him, a starry sky appeared, stretching as far as the eye could see. This was a grand space of the universe. Great stars were resplendent and rumbling as they slowly rotated. There were black holes everywhere. This scene truly appeared. It was to suppress the first mountain. Beside him, someone stood on a 2-meter-long golden feather, overlooking number 9 and the others on the bloody plateau with a cold expression. He was similarly conceited. Even the heaven and earth have been destroyed several times. Who can live in eternal glory? Those who have passed will be eliminated in the end. Even this world doesn't have his name circulating. He should have long been swept into ruins and the ashes of history. If there's anything left behind, if there's any trace left, just erase his name and everything. The group of people were extremely cold. They came from a forbidden lands, and each of them had dominated an era. How could they be intimidated by a few words from number 9? Now, these peak creatures all revealed their killing intent and wanted to overturn this place. This was because they all had backup plans and powerful resources behind them. They were confident that if they fought to the death, they could destroy the legend of this place. Number 9 was furious. He believed that these people had blasphemed this ancient land that had crossed the ages and even humiliated that person. This was intolerable. Kill them all. Don't leave a single one alive. Number 2's temper was about to explode. But do they think they can approach the traces left behind during that period of time? They aren't even worthy, number 6 said. His voice wasn't loud and was a bit overcast. He turned around and stared at the smooth surface, feeling a bit sad. Each time this place was opened, a bit of remnant traces would be consumed, and in the end, it would gradually become dim. On the other side, the pupils of the creatures that came from the restricted region shrunk. A few of them erupted with anger. They actually said that they weren't worthy. There were some whose indistinct faces became cold and gloomy. No one dared to evaluate them like this. What could there be here that not even the restricted lands working together had the qualifications to obtain? Number 9 nodded and said, "That's true. We'll do it ourselves and kill as many as we can." The 4 Tribulation Sparrow laughed heartily. Although he had been injured not long ago, his aura was even more dangerous now. It was as if some invisible substance had been injected into his body. Yes, there's something behind us. Number 3's expression changed as he reminded his brother beside him. Although I don't eat meat, I still want to slaughter them with my own hands. Number 7 said, "Come and try." Among the creatures in the Forbidden Land, there were some who stood within the flames, as if they were going to burn down the 33 heavens. Their tempers were also terrifyingly great. "All of you, get out of the way. I'm going to kill him." At this moment, number 1, who had been silent ever since he woke up, spoke. With a boom, he crossed over. As his human skin swelled up, his head of gray hair hung loosely behind him. He was like a master of the great Tao that controlled the heavens and earth. As his hands moved, his entire body was covered in order symbols and great Tao fragments. These patterns turned into a supreme armor that covered his body. Kill. At this moment, both sides attacked tyrannically and began a decisive battle. In terms of numbers, the first mountain had fewer people. After the addition of number 1 and number 7, there were only 6 experts left. On the other side, there were 8 people. On average, there were at least 1 or 2 people from each restricted land. It was currently unknown whether there were more creatures from the restricted lands hiding in the dark. It had to be said that this battle was too terrifying and intense. Even the interior of the first mountain was rumbling and shaking. It had become a blood-colored world. This was because after all the creatures fought to the death, they were releasing their exuberant vitality. Their blood energy was like a vast ocean as it surged here. Darkness will cover the earth in the end, shrouding one great era after another. The expert from the primal chaos abyss spoke. Boundless darkness invaded this place, and the coldness and deathly stillness became the only things between heaven and earth. He held a pitch-black jar in his hand and aimed it at number 9 and the others. Interesting. Has the path behind the restricted lands finally revealed some clues? The darkness has returned and revealed the tip of the iceberg, number 9 said coldly. At this moment, he was no longer demonic. Instead, he was bathed in golden light and operated his breathing technique. He absorbed and spat out the energy in the area behind him and erupted with dazzling light. He was still tyrannical as he rushed over and fell into the darkness alone. Back then, someone tore apart the darkness with his bare hands. You people dare to come again? Number 9 erupted with power. Millions of strands of golden light shot out from his body and pierced through the darkness. Moreover, he was bombarding the jar with his bare hands to resist the devouring power that was like a black hole. Boom! This area exploded. The expert from the primal chaos abyss was sent flying. The jar in his hand cracked and poured out boundless black mist. However, after the jar shattered, it actually let out a cold and sinister laugh. It was as if a vengeful spirit of millions of years was laughing. Through the black mist, half of a sinister face could be seen, connecting to the source of darkness. Even number 9 was alarmed and realized that the problem was extremely serious. This time, it was no longer a matter of setting up a trap to catch a dragon shark. There are coordinates within the jar, and it's connected to the most mysterious source of the primal chaos abyss. Was it trying to guide over? At this moment, even the gloomy number 1 was moved. He even suspected that it was connected to other realms. At this moment, he roared loudly. He threw out a series of heavy punches, each one seemingly piercing through eternity. The middle-aged man in front of him, who was standing amidst the overflowing flames, was shaken until he coughed out large mouthfuls of blood. In the end, he was even more powerful and tyrannical. It was as if he was treading on the river of time. He rushed forward with extreme speed and threw out 9 consecutive punches amidst the thumping sounds. His opponent was penetrated and blood splattered in all directions. Then, number 1 hurriedly pounced toward number 9. He blasted into the darkness to kill that half-blurry face. At this moment, number 9 also attacked in a tyrannical manner. He forced back the enemy in the primal chaos abyss and attacked the sinister face in the darkness. Unfortunately, this was invisible. The so-called connection to the depths of the primal chaos abyss and the source of darkness had only just begun. That thing hadn't come over yet. What was seen now was only its projection. At this moment, the battles in other places were also becoming more and more intense. The aura of the 4 Tribulation Sparrow was completely different. It was as if some kind of substance had been injected into its body from an unknown source. I have the 4 sky-opening swords. 1 sword to slay 10,000 immortals. The 4 Tribulation Sparrow shouted once again. Even if you use it 10,000 times, you won't be able to use it. This isn't a technique that you can use. It's your ancestors' attack method, shouted number 3. He was fighting against the 4 Tribulation Sparrow. Every move he made was filled with fist intent. He was using the ultimate fist and didn't conceal it all. It was boundlessly tyrannical, and its fist light drowned this part of the world. However, this time, the silver pupils in the 4 Tribulation Sparrow's eyes were extremely terrifying. Then, it became even more profound, as if it had become a different person. Some kind of will was awakening and awakening. Is someone talking about me? I can also be considered one of the ancestors of the 4 Tribulation Sparrow race. I'm getting closer. The 4 Tribulation Sparrow spoke in such an ostentatious manner. Even though it had the face of a middle-aged man, its voice was very terrifying and old. It was using its body as a medium to guide an extremely ancient ancestor of the Four Tribulation Sparrow. Where was it summoned from? This made people's hearts jump. However, even though the power of this sword had increased explosively, it definitely couldn't slay 10,000 immortals with one sword. Boom! Heaven and earth exploded. The fist intent of the ultimate fist collided with the sword light, and even the void was annihilated. It was extremely terrifying. Primal chaos overflowed in all directions and surged as if the heavens were being split open. Number 3 shivered. He suppressed this sword, but he indeed felt an extremely shocking aura. It was incomparably sharp, as if it could slay 10,000 immortals. I have the heaven-opening four swords, borrowing an era from the heavens. The Four Tribulation Sparrow spoke once again. Its voice became even more indifferent and old, as if something had entered its body and was supporting its flesh and blood, releasing this sword on its behalf. This was horrifying. The Four Tribulation Sparrow race had experienced 4 great tribulations, and its ancestor had actually created such a mysterious technique. It was just the second sword, yet it was borrowing an era from the heavens. Even though the sword light hadn't appeared yet, it was already enough to make people's blood run cold. This second sword was most likely going to be extremely terrifying. Boom! The heavens collapsed and time flowed. As the world collapsed, it crashed down like waves. Could this still be considered sword light? The second sword of the Four Tribulation Sparrow race, borrowing an era from the heavens. That was a world-shocking sword light that drew upon the power of the great tribulation of the world. It swept through the heavens, carrying with it the fragments of time. It was as if the scene of a great era had truly blossomed here. However, at the crucial moment, the Four Tribulation Sparrow suddenly spat out a large mouthful of blood. Cracks appeared on its body. This sword was too terrifying, and its consumption was incomparably great. Its body wasn't sturdy enough, and it actually couldn't support the second sword. Number 3 didn't laugh. Instead, he felt a chill run down his spine. If that sword had been successfully unleashed just now, it wouldn't have been aimed at him, but rather at the smooth, fractured world. The other party was brimming with ambition and really wanted to tear open the dusty veil of this place. Even though, from number 3's point of view, the other party didn't understand the ins and outs of this old land and was truly courting death, he was still horrified. He couldn't allow anyone to casually touch the still fractured world. Right at this time, something went wrong with number 9 and number 1. In the darkness, the indistinct silhouette trembled violently. In the end, it turned into half a face and appeared. Juice was dripping from the corner of its mouth. With a hong sound, it seemed as if it was going to swallow the entire world. An auspicious, evil creature, you actually dare to bring this kind of thing to profane this place. Aren't you afraid of being corroded as well? Shouted number 9. At this moment, even he and number 1 felt great restraining fear. Behind him, the great banner fluttered about, blood dripping down from the banner's surface. It suddenly swept over, covering half of that terrifying face that was dripping with rotting juice. I once sat on the eternal sea of stars and was unrivaled for an epic. This terrifying face was clearly not normal. It was as if it was talking in a dream and was unconsciously saying something. Even the experts of the Forbidden Lands were avoiding it, not daring to come into contact with its flesh. You were once unrivaled, sweeping through the heavens and earth, overlooking the past, present, and future. Go and take back everything that belongs to you. Your body, your weapons, they're all in that fractured world. In the darkness, an aged voice sounded, bewitching this half-face. That half-rotten face was too sinister. It flashed past, breaking through all obstructions and evading all obstructions. It was as if it was traveling against the flow of time, shaking the fragments of time. At this moment, both number 1 and number 9 were alarmed. They realized that they had encountered great trouble. Swoosh! It was unknown how powerful this half-rotten face was when it was alive, but it was still so sinister at this moment. It evaded the great flag, and its target was that fractured world. It was too strange. It was as if it was omnipresent, as if it was traveling through the tearing of time. No one could stop it. Take back everything that belongs to you, the glory that belongs to you, unrivaled from past to present. In the darkness, that voice was still sounding, urging that half-face to advance. Who claims to be unrivaled? Just as this rotten face approached the fractured world, not even number 9 and the others could stop it in time. However, right at this moment, a faint sigh that seemed to come from several great eras ago sounded. The voice was extremely soft, but it shook this place until it was about to explode. It also made all the experts explode. Chapter 1300. A light sigh sounded, as if it severed all of eternity, shaking heaven and earth until it exploded. Chaotic energy erupted, as if heaven and earth were being reopened, the universe reenacted. Right now, there wasn't a single person here who wasn't alarmed. Cracks appeared on the surface of their bodies like cracked porcelain, but they carried traces of blood, about to explode. However, number 9 and the others were first shaken, and then their bodies began to tremble. Almost at the same time, tears overflowed from their eyes, tears about to flow out. The half-rotten face was indeed extremely powerful. When it heard this voice, its face distorted, as if it was going against the flow of endless time, as if it was traveling through the fractured years. It frantically approached, no longer needing that voice to guide it. Instead, black mist overflowed into the heavens from its body, strange great Tao patterns that had never been seen before appearing, becoming the embodiment of the Tao. It pierced through time. As for space itself, it was like paper, unable to stop it. With a flash, it arrived before the smooth fracture. My body, my weapon, it belongs to me, my eternal time, return me to my brilliance. It was roaring with a low voice, its rotten face extremely sinister. Right now, it only had half a face, with a small portion of facial bones, extremely terrifying. It was in the torn heaven and earth tunnel, black, terrifying, great Tao light chains curling about, rumbling sounds shattering the sky dome, about to smash into the static fractured space. However, right at this time, ripple-like patterns appeared, rippling over from the fractured space like water, making everything calm down. That half of the rotting face was also stopped. As for the back, regardless of whether it was number 9 and the others, or the peak expert from the restricted lands, they were all quiet. They were even more horrified. It was because in that instant, everyone discovered that they entered a still world, unable to even release a sound, even their souls about to freeze here. They couldn't move at all. Finally, they heard the half-rotten face's long howl. It was too sinister, too terrifying. Endless black mist erupted. It was as if the abyss of hell was cut open, revealing the darkest and coldest fracture. Then all types of strange symbols of order erupted, even the great Tao corroded. The half-rotten face could move again. It was incomparably crazy, and the sparse hair on its scalp dripped with blood. Its eye sockets were pitch black like the abyss, and it looked even more malevolent. It was releasing a long howl, its hair dancing about, as if the ruler of darkness was reincarnating in a corpse. It was incomparably strange, sinister, and terrifying to the point where even the experts from the restricted lands felt a chill run through their bodies. At this time, the half-rotten face went crazy and charged towards the fractured world. Endless black mist burst forth and surged towards him. Undefeatable body, sweeping through an era, slaughtering all enemies in the heavens above and the earth below. Its howls were a bit unbearable, feeling as if their souls were being corroded. The creatures in the restricted region all felt as if their bodies were being torn apart. The only fortunate thing was that it was doing everything it could to deal with the fractured world. Its entire body was rushing there, and the black mist also entered that place. It was at this moment that a sound came from the still world of the fracture again. The sound spread out along with the ripples, directly illuminating the heavens and the earth and evaporating all the black fog. It was like a strand of the golden glow of dawn that tore through the darkness before dawn, and it brought along exuberant vitality and brilliance as it tore apart the veil of night that covered the sky. Who dares say they are undefeatable? It was just a short sentence, just a few words, yet they were accompanied by gentle ripples. They completely swept away the darkness, and all of the mist disappeared. At the same time, people also noticed that the so-called dark mist and half of the rotten face did not rush into the fractured world. They were just at the edge of the world and were stopped when they were about to touch it. The great black mist was completely dissolved, only leaving behind the splendor of the sunrise. At this time, everyone finally saw the source of that sound. It was only a piece of gray stone that carried cracks. There seemed to be some luster seeping out from the cracks of the stone. It was originally extremely unremarkable as it rested in the still world of the fracture. Linglong Stone. In the distance, the restricted region creatures revealed expressions of shock. In that instant, they thought of many things. Meanwhile, after number 9 and the others heard that sound, they became stirred up, their emotions rising and falling intensely. Their bodies and spirits were all trembling, tears about to flow out. Linglong stones were extremely rare. They could engrave a large portion of the heaven and earth order of an era, as well as a portion of the Tao patterns, becoming a powerful scripture that was almost alive. There were some precious Linglong stones among them that were extremely special, almost able to engrave the great Tao divine form of a certain era. This was terrifying. If someone obtained it and carefully comprehended it, they would naturally obtain tremendous benefits. Everyone was sure that the piece before them was a special Linglong stone, one that was extremely rare. However, it didn't engrave any order, great Tao patterns, and other things, only engraving some type of sound, some type of aura. It could actually be like this. This left everyone shocked. A single person's words and aura could be like this. It really was unimaginable. All of the restricted region experts were horrified. The half-rotten face scattered down its long bloody hair, revealing a few facial bones. It howled, attacking again. It still want to dive in. I haven't been defeated. Control the rise and fall of heaven and earth. It was hysterical, completely entering a state of madness. Who dare say they are unmatched? Who dare say they are undefeatable? At this time, a complete and clear voice rang out, as if it came from the endless eras of destruction, the ruins of the erased evolutionary civilization, passing through several great eras. At this moment, that half-rotten face exploded. This strange creature that made even the restricted region experts tremble in fear, not daring to touch, unwilling to approach, directly exploded. This was just too shocking. It was just a single sentence, yet it seemed to possess a demonic nature, carrying a divine nature as it slowly and unhurriedly traveled through time and space, crushing this deep and immeasurable rotten face that had already gone mad. One didn't even need to think about it to know that the half-rotten face definitely possessed matchless strength back then, an unimaginable existence. However, it was still killed by someone in the end. Now, even if it held onto its will, guided over by someone, condensing a corporeal body with a rotten face, it still wasn't enough. In this place, a single sentence swept through the past, present, and future, crushing it to death just like that. Endless black mist erupted. After that half-rotten face exploded, it became even more unwilling, carrying resentment, burning its own will. It erupted with dark light, accompanied by a strange aura that rushed into the sky, wishing to pierce through the world before it. Meanwhile, after the few facial bones were crushed, they turned into several dozen even smaller fragments. Right now, they were also rising and falling, deriving great Tao symbols. However, everything was futile. The more it erupted, the faster it was destroyed. After it was struck by that sound and covered by ripples, it was destined to turn into nothingness, no longer existing. Regardless of whether it was the dark light, the bloodstains that remained, or the small pieces of facial bones, they all directly turned into fine powder, obliterated and burned. Hong. In the end, not even ashes were left behind, sliced into nothingness just like that. The voice and aura that came from the Linglong stone turned the darkness into auspicious peace just like that. A strand of multicolored light scattered down, the world becoming peaceful again. Chapter 1301. A wisp of morning multicolored light drove away the darkness. Heaven and earth became brilliant, fresh, and auspicious. However, the experts from the restricted lands all felt a bone-piercing coldness, a chill running from head to toe. In the still world of the secluded seclusion, that dark, cracked, faintly glowing stone slowly left. It was the only moving object. Number 9 and the others were extremely quiet. Only their bodies were trembling slightly, hot tears long rolling down their faces. How many eras had passed? Generation after generation of exceptional creatures appeared, displaying their heaven-reaching talents and brilliance. Yet there was no longer a trace of his name in this world. No one knew what he had previously done, what he paid, or how he went on his way. He traveled alone in silence and loneliness, the entire world calling out to him. Yet they could no longer obtain his reply. As the years went on, the eras changed. In the end, his name no longer existed in this world. No traces of him left behind. Today, in this place, they finally heard his voice again. In this quiet world, it was long and drawn out. How could number 9 and the others not shed hot tears? Even though it wasn't his own words, only an imprint of the past echoing, it was still unstoppable. Just like in the past, it swept through everything. A single person's voice could actually pass through several great eras, crushing that rotten, inauspicious, and terrifying creature, making even the experts from the restricted lands shiver inwardly. They developed thoughts of withdrawing, but there was a voice that sounded from behind them. The dead will always be dead, unable to appear again. That is a special Linglong stone. It stored that person's aura and voice. Now that it has been released, there is nothing left. If it wants to resonate again, who knows how many years it will take. Someone told all experts not to be scared, that there was no need to worry about anything. Moreover, among the restricted land creatures here, some of their bodies suddenly shook intensely. There was a mysterious substance that entered their bodies, making their cultivation levels quickly rise. Some people's strength increased by a level. Linglong stone, this should be the final relic he left behind. That final trace has already disappeared. Today we can completely wipe it out, not a single drop left behind. There was a voice that sounded from the darkness. It was precisely the creature that previously bewitched the half-rotten face. Right now, he was boosting morale, having the top experts from the restricted lands continue to take action, explore the final secrets of this place. Number 9 and the others watched the gray stone leave into the distance, entering the depths of the still world. They roughly knew how the Linglong stone was formed. Countless years ago, the stone gained sentience, and in the end, it became a peerless expert. Otherwise, what kind of stone could carve the traces of the great Tao? That gray stone also had a great origin, or else it wouldn't be able to enter this still world. Number 9 and the others watched it disappear into the distance. Then, they turned around and stared at the group of enemies again. Even someone as strong as number 9 and as hot-tempered as number 2, despite their own strength, had never dared to underestimate the world. That was because they knew that times had changed. The Yang realm was no longer the old land of the past. Some roads were connected to unknown lands, and some unpredictable creatures appeared. This was understandable. That's enough. That person's traces have disappeared. The first mountain is no longer terrifying. Let's all attack together. Use our most powerful methods to erase all traces of him and open up that fracture world. This was very strange. The incoming creatures seemed to be able to communicate with the restricted lands and summon the power of the ancestors, even the soul light. It was extremely terrifying. Not only that, but there were also people holding special objects. That was the mutated crystal of magnetic marrow, suffused with the aura of primal chaos. It was regarded as one of the best materials for arranging domains. Now, who would have thought you guys would still dare to act rashly? You won't shed a tear until you see the coffin, said number 6. Number 9 said coldly, at first, I didn't want to be too serious. Do you really have to sacrifice your blood here? Or are you really not worthy to force yourself to do it? Don't be too full of yourself. There are always existences in this world that you can't understand, and there are creatures that you need to look up to and revere. It's hard for you to imagine what is connected behind the restricted lands. Even if that legend reappears and that person returns, it won't be of any help. The times are changing, the years are changing, and many things have changed. Some glory is destined to be dim and forever decline. At this moment, a crack appeared beside the fourth tribulation sparrow, which then transformed into a door of light. An incomplete soul descended, and its aura was too terrifying. It caused the heaven and earth to collapse and the void to completely crack. Then, it flashed and entered the body of the fourth tribulation sparrow. In the blink of an eye, the fourth tribulation sparrow crushed the heaven and earth. The 4 divine rings outside its body completely materialized and clanged loudly. The race that was said to have experienced 4 great tribulations and passed through 4 epochs was now displaying its extremely terrifying side. This was the remnant soul of an even older 4th tribulation sparrow. It had been summoned and possessed the body of the already powerful, but seemingly still robust 4th tribulation sparrow. He had lent power to the 4th tribulation sparrow before. Everyone, don't hold back, he said. His voice split the vast sky and rumbled, shaking the first mountain. At the same time, he took out a shining object. It was the mutated crystal of the magnetic marrow, which was said to be as hard as mother gold. Moreover, it contained innately special patterns that could strengthen domains. This was a mutated magnetic marrow crystal that had been carved a long time ago. Chaotic aura circulated as it was shot out, arranged into a special pattern, and sank into the ground of the first mountain. The 4th tribulation sparrow was unbelievably fast, and the arrangement was completed in an instant. It's done. The 9-tune Sky River's myriad immortal slaughter domain has been set up. Everyone attacked together. His voice was low, but it caused the expressions of number 9 and the others to become serious. Although the 4th tribulation sparrow had the 4 heaven-splitting swords, which could slay 10,000 immortals with a single strike, the current 4th tribulation sparrow could not do it. Now, with the support of the domain, it was going to display the true power of the peerless sword. The race that had gone through 4 epochs had accumulated the most powerful trump card, the 4 heaven-splitting swords. It had unfathomable power, but the key was that the caster could withstand the backlash. Only by being strong enough could they use it. The pool of primal chaos is also here to send a funeral bell to the first mountain. He, the expert from the pool of primal chaos, was dressed in golden armor. The surroundings were very dark, but he himself was very bright. What he took out was not a real bell. Instead, it was a large magnetic marrow flag that finally arranged into the pattern of a funeral bell. It sank into the ground, directly changing the heaven and earth and reshaping the terrain of the first mountain. In the blink of an eye, the ground trembled as the funeral bell rang. The rumbling of the bell was truly shocking. It was as if one could hear the sound of hell summoning all spirits to the Yellow Springs. The creatures in the Forbidden Land had all brought along mutated magnetic crystals. They had laid down their own killing domains and coordinated with their own attacks. One could imagine how serious they were. The Lonely Ridge will also send a song here. Today, the first mountain will be buried, and all traces of this place will be erased. What glory! What legendary person! Let him disappear. The tune of a flute rang out. It was very terrifying and incomparably frightening. At first, the tempo was very slow, but in the end, it made everyone's soul light tremble as if it wanted to be taken away from their bodies. The song played by the creature from the Forbidden Land, Lonely Ridge, was one of the most powerful techniques in history. It was ranked in the top 3 the chaotic myriad spirit tribulation song. Not long ago, he had played a prelude when he appeared. Now, he cooperated with the fourth tribulation sparrow and the experts from the pool of primal chaos to harmonize with the domain. In the blink of an eye, the heaven and earth were about to collapse. This was very terrifying. The terror of the chaotic myriad spirit tribulation song wasn't only reflected in its direct combat strength, but also its ability to affect the general trend. According to the calculations of the ancients, once this song was played, whichever side one stood on would have a 90% chance of victory. This was very demonic, but it was also very real. Since ancient times, those glorious life and death battles couldn't be fake. The data had been strictly calculated. This still isn't enough. Let me help out too. Another creature spoke. At this moment, a remnant soul appeared infused with the physical body of a creature from the Forbidden Land. Immediately, blood energy surged into the sky, and then his strength rose sharply. This was a creature from the Forbidden Land of Star Feather Heaven. The remnant soul of a certain ancestor of his race was also summoned to help him use the most powerful secret technique. With a rumble, a crack opened behind him. All of a sudden, a sky full of stars appeared. Many great stars were rolling about and pressing down. There was also a black hole that appeared and also approached the interior of the first mountain. I'll borrow the destroyed starry sea of the ancient universe to fill up that still world. Let's see if it can take all of it, shouted the expert from Star Feather Heaven. Boom! At this moment, the scene was extremely terrifying. The expert from Star Feather Heaven was the first to launch a substantial attack. The great crack behind him was boundless. Countless great stars rotated and a black hole descended. In the end, a starry sky poured down and was about to fill up that still world. This was truly shocking. Was this an illusion or reality? Today we will send off a funeral for the first mountain, they shouted. Chapter 1302. Who was it for? Number 9 and the others were furious. Break! Number 9 shouted loudly. He stood together with his brothers and pulled up the tattered flag. He waved it violently and caused the falling stars to explode continuously amidst loud bangs. The river of stars was cut off, and the black canyon of the cosmos was collapsing. The instant they exchanged blows, it was extremely intense and shocking. I'm coming. Kill of 10,000 immortals in the Nine Bends River. Activate. The sparrow shouted and began to attack. This moment was too terrifying. The world was boundless, and the power of the great calamity filled the air. Then, it interweaved into a large sword in the void, as if it was truly going to slay all immortals. Number 9 and the others swayed as they felt a terrifying pressure. After the sparrow's domain was activated, it changed directions and used the one sword slaying 10,000 immortals. Number 2, Number 9, and the others worked together to activate the Great Flag to resist this large-scale killing domain. The void in this area cracked, and the world exploded. The Great Flag fluttered and became as tall as the sky. Protector Number 9 and the others were also guarding the region outside the fractured world. It's just a tattered flag. Just tear it apart, and I'll send you a great gift. At this terrifying moment, a black shadow appeared. He was a ball of soul light that was as black as ink. He brought over a special item. It was a rotten toe. His voice wasn't unfamiliar. It was the same person who had bewitched the half-rotten face earlier. Support the domain, go. He brought out that rotten finger and placed it in the special terrain. This made the 10,000 immortals in the Nine Bends River's domain even more terrifying. There's actually such a strange and inauspicious remnant body. Number 9 was alarmed. Things had indeed exceeded his expectations at this stage. Some of the ancestors of the Forbidden Lands had remnant souls. Moreover, the person who could guide the rotten face here was definitely not simple. It was suspected that he had a great background. Has the power behind the Forbidden Lands revealed itself? Number 1 said in a deep voice, complete it a bit more and send over the remnant body of an expert from the past. The jet-black soul light opened its mouth and brought over the remaining half of the palm from the crack. Black mist overflowed into the sky. The rotten smell made people want to vomit, but it was indeed boundlessly terrifying. The incomplete rotten palm covered everything and could destroy everything. It suppressed the first mountain. Number 9 and the others' expressions changed. "Oh, it's done," someone said. Everything was under control. Boom! Heaven and earth rumbled, and a starry sky poured down in torrents. Even the black hole was closing in, about to fill up the still world. This was the attack of Star Feather Sky's experts. One sword slaying 10,000 immortals. The fourth tribulation, Sparrow, shouted loudly. With the help of the domain, it unleashed the sky-splitting sword, which fused with the huge sword that appeared in the void. It borrowed the power of the domain to unleash its most powerful attack and slash forward, to deliver your death knell. The experts of the primal chaos abyss rose in revolt. The entire great earth rumbled. Symbols interweaved in the void, forming a great bell that bombarded the fractured world. These attacks were too terrifying. At this moment, the decayed toe and half a palm fused with the power of two domains and blasted out together. If it weren't for the rotten toes and palms, the domain laid down by the four tribulation sparrow and the chaotic abyss expert might not have been able to be activated to its strongest state so smoothly. After all, this was the first mountain, and there were domain patterns beneath the ground. Now, it was different. The power of darkness surged violently, suppressing the original secret power underground. At this moment, Number 9 and the others really couldn't bear it anymore. They continuously coughed up blood, wrapped themselves in the great flags, and quickly retreated. They took the initiative to evade and wanted to enter that still world. At this moment, they had no choice but to retreat. That was because even as powerful as they were, they really couldn't resist anymore. There were too many invading enemies, and their various methods were too powerful. The energy of Number 9 and the others was close to the aura of the still world and had long since been recognized. If they hid inside, they wouldn't be attacked. Fill up this place with stars. Let's see if you can still hold a part of the universe's starry sky, shouted the expert of Star Feather Sky. He activated it again and used powerful methods to suppress this place. Rivers of stars fell from the sky, surging down violently. A black hole appeared, about to swallow the first mountain. Freeze! At this time, a creature in the darkness spoke. He actually used a strange, secret technique to stop Number 9 and the others from leaving. He froze space, and it was as if he had cut off time. This was a sphere of terrifying soul light, making everything slow down for the enemy, stopping Number 9 and the others from withdrawing into that still world. Add another flame to the fire, construct a map of coordinates, penetrate that path behind the forbidden land, and guide the power of a realm to descend. I refuse to believe that some legend can exist forever. Regardless of who it is, they should just disappear. Today, everything here will be flattened. Another mysterious creature appeared, also a sphere of soul light. It was extremely ancient, releasing a decaying aura. It was unknown just how many years it had existed in this world for. How long? There a gate blossomed, and then it exploded. It was receiving something, about to connect a path, make a realm pour out endless energy, flatten this place. It had to be said that after these people went crazy, they used all types of trump cards. It really was a bit terrifying. Normally speaking, the first mountain really should have been wiped out, no longer existing. Number 9 and the others coughed out large mouthfuls of blood. No matter how powerful they were, what they experienced exceeded their limits. 9-tune sky river, 10,000 immortals kill, death knell, decaying palm, the realm force that surged from a special place behind a certain forbidden land, as well as the starry sky drawn over by Star Feather Heaven's expert, covering the sky and covering the earth as it poured down in torrents. This was simply like the end of the world. Slaughtering any race was enough. In particular, Number 9 and the others were obstructed by a mysterious sphere of soul light using a secret technique. They couldn't immediately return to the still world. Now, their bodies were all shaking violently, coughing out large mouthfuls of blood. Their bodies were cracking apart, and their lives were on the line. The situation was extremely dangerous. At the final moment, the damaged great flag suddenly moved, erupting with dazzling radiance. Bright red blood seeped out from the surface of the flag, and world-shaking shouts of war rang out. The great flag fluttered, and the flag wrapped around them, protecting their lives. Golden spears and armored horses, murderous cries shook the heavens. It was as if they returned to a certain grand battlefield, and a world-shaking decisive battle was currently being played out. All of this was released by the damaged great flag. Its voice seemed to reach the 33 heavens. It seemed to have released some type of message, activating the still world. Rumble. All of a sudden, a dazzling sword light illuminated the past, present, and future like a landslide and a tsunami, abruptly erupting in the broken world. I originally thought there was no need to alarm it, Number 9 said softly. However, the life forms in the Forbidden Land went crazy and used all kinds of forbidden powers. They could even find the remains of the life forms at the source of darkness. They even sacrificed the last half of their palm and toes, as well as the power of the realm. In the end, they finally activated the broken world. He was a little disappointed, but in the end, he felt relieved. At this point, it was worth it to have that broken world touched. After all, many big fishes had come today, and some of the things behind them had appeared. Rumble. The world seemed to be no longer continuous. A sword light slashed through the ages, streaking across several eras as if it was cleaving from the end of eternity. There was nothing it couldn't destroy, no enemy it couldn't kill, and nothing could stop it. The sword Chi traversed millions and millions of miles, cutting through everything. The starry sky that the powerhouses of Star Feather Heaven had brought in after tearing apart heaven and earth was flattened by the sword. It exploded, and the starry sky was slashed apart, instantly annihilated into nothingness. As for the powerhouses of Star Feather Heaven, they were vaporized and evaporated in an instant. Not even ashes were left, let alone exploding into a bloody mist. Under this sword, he was too insignificant. After being swept by the sword mark, he would never be able to reincarnate. His body and soul were completely destroyed, and he disappeared without a trace. Bang! The so-called 10,000 immortal slaughter of the Nine-Tune Sky River didn't even produce a ripple. It was directly obliterated by this sword light, and there was no sense of its existence. Before the 4 Tribulation Sparrow died, there was only boundless despair and endless frustration in its eyes. What's slaying 10,000 immortals with one sword and borrowing an era from the heavens? They were far inferior to this sword. The difference between heaven and earth was like the difference between heaven and earth. Strictly speaking, the 4 heaven-splitting swords were indeed world-shaking ultimate arts. They were profound and unfathomable, and if one really mastered them, perhaps they were as terrifying as their name suggested. However, compared to this sword, it was still not enough. The 4 Tribulation Sparrow exploded, and even the ancient remnant soul in its body screamed miserably. It turned into ashes and was slashed into nothingness. The powerhouse of the primal chaos abyss was sent off by his death knell. They were crushed into pieces and disappeared after turning into dust. Nothing could withstand this sword. Even the toes and rotting palms of the creature from the source of darkness exploded immediately, turning into ashes and vanishing forever. As for the creature who was playing the chaotic myriad spirit tribulation song, he also disappeared from the face of the earth. He didn't even have the chance to fully display the so-called peerless technique. His own strength wasn't enough. So how could he compare to this sword that could sweep through the world? Not only it, but even the powerhouse from the Still Destruction Ridge who appeared with it also turned into ashes before disappearing into nothingness. Boom! This sword crossed the ages and pierced through eras. There was nothing it couldn't destroy, and no one in the world could block it. the mysterious soul light in the darkness, as well as the creature that wanted to open the passage and receive the power of the world, all exploded and were completely annihilated at this moment. At the last moment, they could only frighteningly think of that legend, that person that didn't exist in ancient history and was forgotten. They wanted to shout out loud. But in the end, they were all annihilated and turned into nothingness. This sword not only killed them, but also the back of the path they opened up. Some places were connected, and the sword light entered them. With a boom, there was nothing it couldn't kill and nothing it couldn't slay. This sword shocked both the past and the present, shaking the heavens and the earth. It was unknown how many experts were awakened from their slumber. Regardless of whether they were prehistoric or ancient, they were all trembling. Could it be him? Someone's voice was trembling. It wasn't that no one knew. It was just that they hadn't reached that height. The young realm was already different. It was connected to other regions, and mysterious creatures could descend. In the end, there were people who remembered his name. In some places, in some great regions, experts were screaming miserably. This sword had slain all the enemies it connected to. No one could stop it, and nothing could stop it. And all of this was caused by a sword scar left behind in the still broken world. Today, it was triggered and created this attack. It vaguely replayed the fragmented scene of that person severing the ages with one sword. At this moment, hot tears rolled down the faces of Number 9 and the others. They were sobbing as they watched this scene from the broken flag. "I believe you're definitely still alive and will reappear one day," roared Number 9. The sword light acknowledged the flag and didn't harm it in the slightest. Number 9 and the others stood there and looked at the sword light that had severed the ages. They mumbled and their lips were trembling. Chapter 1303. The world was boundlessly vast, but at this moment, it wasn't as magnificent as the sword light. The sword chi was vast and boundless, and it pressed down upon the world without end. A single sword pierced through the heavens and penetrated the earth, slashing through eternity. No one could block it. A single sword pierced through all enemies, hacking into some secret lands, killing countless enemies, dyeing a region red with blood. A single sword cut through the past, present, and future. Anyone who stood in its way instantly exploded, not even leaving behind ashes. They were cut into nothingness. It was just that domineering. In the heavens and the earth, there was only sword light that was dazzling, resplendent, and boundlessly vast. A single slash of the sword cut through the ages. In the young realm, the old monsters who were awakened in the famous mountains and great rivers were all horrified. Their hair stood on end, and their deteriorating bodies instantly tensed up. All of them were incomparably shocked. In fact, the situation was more serious than they had imagined. Inside the first mountain, after the sword light swept out, not only did it kill all the enemies and all the invading creatures, but also implicated the ancestral court behind them. For example, Star Feather Heaven's experts displayed a wondrous technique, using the most powerful, mysterious art, directly summoning the broken galaxy of the ancient universe. The stars in the sky poured down, and even the black hole descended with it. They wanted to fill up the fractured world and destroy the first mountain. All of these stars had passed through their ancestral court and were thus used by him. He summoned them over and blessed them with power that blasted toward the first mountain. Now, not only did the sword light kill this person, it even pierced through the Star Feather Heaven forbidden land behind him. This was truly a strike from a distance of 1,000,000,000,000 kilometers. It was grand and resplendent, and the sword light was boundless. It was like an ocean had transformed into a vast waterfall that surged towards the heavens. Star Feather Heaven, this forbidden land, was very mysterious. It was located outside the heavens, overlooking the rise and fall of the mortal world, and its status was quite extraordinary. However, now, this restricted land exploded, a giant hole blasted open. This clan's ancestral court housed the direct descendants and core bloodline. With a sweep of the sword, this place fell. The borders were still there, but what was left of the central region? The darkness became a big hole. Originally, stars flickered about here, stellar rivers flowing about, extremely resplendent, but now they were dim and terrifying. This scene was only sensed by the top experts. Many people in the outside world were still unaware of it. Similar things happened in the primal chaos abyss and solitary destruction ridge. The depths of these two places were connected to the strange secret earth. There were small paths that led to other terrifying ancient realms. Today, the two places suffered a disaster. Sword radiance descended from the heavens, piercing through. Overflowing sword energy surged like a sea, rushing into that strange and terrifying ancient world. Wherever the sword light went, heads rolled and blood flowed like rivers in the dark. Heaven and earth shook violently, and the most powerful experts were shocked. They were the only ones who could clearly sense what was happening. Everyone else had no idea what was happening, and it was hard to imagine that the shocking changes on the first mountain would affect every region. In the end, the sky-piercing sword chi disappeared, and the boundless brilliance retracted into the first mountain. Only then did everything quiet down. Number 9 and the others stood where they were, trembling. Their lips trembled as they said something. In a trance, they seemed to hear a loud roar from within the boundless sword energy and the sword light that illuminated eternally. It was that person, that period of time and legend. When he struck out with his final sword strike, an indistinct figure appeared. Number 9 and the others' emotions all fluctuated intensely, shaking. In that sword radiance, they seemed to have seen that person's rear figure when he left back then. It was a bit miserable, traveling alone, traveling far away. Who will be with me? When the sword light was vast and mighty, Number 9 and the others seemed to have heard such a loud roar. It seemed to come from high up in the heavens, and a sword had swept through the ages. Did he need someone to fight shoulder to shoulder with? Or was he thinking of someone? Then everything completely disappeared, as if nothing had happened. Even their memories became blurry, and everything they had just seen dimmed in their hearts. It's like he didn't exist in ancient history, but he really did exist. Number 9 and the others all cried out, tears rolling down their faces as they howled to the sky. In the end, they looked at each other and asked if they had heard that world-shaking roar. Back then, don't say any more. I believe that he is still alive and will definitely appear again. One day he will come back. In the end, they decided to seal off the mountain. The impact of this battle was great, and they wanted to reorganize this place and investigate some old matters. Number 4, Number 5, and Number 8 still hadn't returned. They were looking for some people's footprints and wanted to uncover some terrifying truth for back then. On the 3 battlefields, there were millions of evolvers. They saw all kinds of shocking phenomena in the direction of the first mountain from afar, and even their souls were trembling. Even though they were very far away, they could still see the sky filled with stars pouring down, sword chi rushing into the sky, and darkness enveloping the sky and earth. All kinds of scenes and all kinds of energy flow. Although it didn't affect this place, it still made many evolvers tremble in their legs and their calves and stomachs cramp. They completely collapsed to the ground. Moreover, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the sky. Occasionally, there would be a rain of blood pouring down. It was truly shocking and shocked all the races. Finally, it was completely quiet. The final result of that battle had been decided. It's over. Everything is over. The first mountain is no more. As a divine king, Jiaming, the driver of the 4th tribulation sparrow race, let out a loud roar that shook the sky and made everyone's ears ring. Yes, everything is over. There are many secrets in the first mountain. The most important path of the Yang realm is hidden there. Although it might not be needed now, and there are other paths that can be found, there are still many old matters buried in that area. There's also a big case that needs to be unraveled. Someone else chimed in and walked over. It was the master and servant duo, the descendants of the core bloodline of Still Destruction Ridge. The first mountain has been destroyed and will henceforth become the dust of history. At this moment, Even the descendant of the primal chaos abyss, EU, was sighing. Her beautiful face revealed a very complicated expression. This race and the first mountain were entangled in gratitude. Her ancestor, a peerless beauty, had a dispute with the prehistoric Black Hand Li Su. In an instant, many people looked over at Chu Feng. Their gazes were almost tangible and extremely cold. The entire battlefield became quiet. How could Chowda establish himself after the first mountain was destroyed? The atmosphere was extremely strange. The starlight today is especially brilliant. Another person spoke and walked over. It was a man and a woman, also disciples from the Forbidden Lands. Two people from the core bloodline of Star Feather Heaven had come. The man was handsome, and the woman was cold and elegant. They looked down on the crowd and looked down on everyone. Not long ago, Star Feather Heaven's terrifying secret technique had been displayed. The river of stars poured down from the sky and drowned the first mountain. It was extremely majestic. Unfortunately, they didn't know that the final dazzling light that defied the heavens was actually a streak of sword light that destroyed everything. Even their ancestral cord had been pierced through. The people here, including divine kings and heavenly venerables, found it hard to see through the truth. They didn't know that it was actually a heaven-shocking sword that defied the heavens and killed all enemies. Many people believed that it was a river of stars that pierced through the heavens and earth. Then, it burned and the light reached into the heavens. Later on, even though many people sensed the sword energy, the creatures of the fourth tribulation sparrow race were still arrogant. They smiled and didn't say anything. This was because they believed that this was their clan's heaven opening, four swords erupting. It swept through the heavens and earth, unstoppable. It was the true world suppressing technique. The people of Star Feather Heaven and the descendants of Still Destruction Ridge had arrived. They were all creatures from the Forbidden Lands. This made people realize just how terrifying of an alliance this was. Chu Feng felt bitter in his heart. He felt a headache and a bit helpless. He didn't know the true result of the great battle of the first mountain, but when he saw the descendants of the Forbidden Lands appear one after another, his heart naturally sank. There were more Forbidden Lands that joined hands than he had imagined. Normally speaking, they could indeed destroy the first mountain. Now that the great battle had come to an end, everyone thought that the first mountain was finished. Meanwhile, Chu Feng himself also felt bitter. Based on common sense, he naturally thought that things didn't bode well for him. He was hurt for number 9 and sighed for the former first mountain. However, at this moment, Chu Feng couldn't lower his head no matter what. He might lose, but he wouldn't lose. He looked very calm and said, "Are you sure that your clan's experts won? I think you should prepare yourselves and prepare to cry. No one will laugh at you if you cry out loud." "What are you saying?" Jiaming from the fourth tribulation sparrow race berated. Even though he was a chariot driver, he was a divine king. He couldn't bear the fact that their disciples still dared to be so ostentatious after the first mountain was destroyed. Chu Feng had his hands behind his back. At this moment, he was really holding on. He definitely wouldn't admit defeat. He said, "Don't you understand what I'm saying? Your elders are all dead. They were slaughtered on the first mountain. All of them were executed. You can cry now." The scene was completely silent. The millions of evolvers on the battlefield were listening quietly. After hearing this, they all revealed strange expressions. They felt shocked and incredulous. Was Chowda putting on a strong front? Or was he really that confident? Some people were suspicious. "Ha ha ha." The living being from Silent Destruction Ridge sneered and shook his head. He said, "The first mountain has been completely destroyed. You're still daydreaming. What a joke." The people from the other Forbidden Lands also laughed. Under such circumstances, how could the first mountain turn the tables? One Forbidden Land could fight to the death. If several Forbidden Lands joined forces, was there any clan in the world that couldn't be destroyed? In particular, they knew that their elders had all kinds of backup plans. They had even joined forces with creatures from other realms to descend with the soul light. Chu Feng glanced at them and said, Don't you feel the supreme sword will emanating from the first mountain? At this moment, even the usually calm and steady disciple of the fourth tribulation sparrow race, Jiao Wuyong, smiled and said, "The strongest scriptures of our race are the four sky-splitting swords. I've never heard that the first mountain is proficient in sword sacrifice. Li Su never wields a sword." Ha! The men and women from the Forbidden Lands couldn't help but laugh when they heard this. Some people revealed mocking expressions and looked askance at Chu Feng. There was contempt and disdain. All of them were very arrogant. The first mountain was done for. This was the common understanding of these young experts from the Forbidden Lands. There was nothing to doubt. If they couldn't destroy the first mountain, even after joining forces, then it really couldn't be justified. It wasn't normal at all. They were all laughing coldly, completely unaware of the calamity that had happened to their own clans. Apart from the border regions, the central regions of the vast Forbidden Lands, such as Star Feather Sky and Solitary Destruction Ridge, had long since become large holes. Chu Feng secretly made preparations and was ready to attack at any time. He was going to use his trump card. However, he was still stubborn and wouldn't lower his head. He said, "You've all been tricked by your own clan's experts. You don't know that they've already been defeated. How could they give you such confidence? In the end, your clans are all big pits. F*CK. When did you still dare to be so arrogant at this time?" The core bloodline descendants of the few clans were all indignant. They all wanted to say that your clan was the real pit. It was very difficult for them to imagine that Chu Feng's stubbornness would come true in the end. Oh, then contact the clansmen and gather the images of the first mountain being flattened and massacred. Today, I invite everyone on the battlefield to have a look. The core bloodline descendant of Star Feather Sky smiled as he issued such a suggestion. He wasn't in a hurry to kill Chowda and wanted to slowly torture him. Sure, then hurry up and contact them. Chu Feng nodded. Things had already reached this point, so he had to hold on to the end. However, he secretly prepared the reincarnation soil and the small wooden spear. He was sensing everything around him, wanting to know if there were any celestial venerable level enemies spying on him in secret. Then Chu Feng said, "I have to say, what kind of stupid beliefs did your clans establish for you? Sometimes overconfidence can also lead to a trap. In short, your clans are all big pits." Someone said coldly, "Mobilize people to the first mountain to have an audience with the old ancestor. Get the images of the massacre there." They still didn't know that their ancestral court had become a large, deep pit. The surviving clansmen were crying and wailing. Some people thought of their clansmen who had gone out, and they also thought of themselves. They wanted to urgently contact them and tell them the truth so they could escape. In reality, there were many evolvers everywhere who were on the move. They all wanted to know the results of the battle at the first mountain as soon as possible. Even though some peerless powerhouses had long since sensed what had happened, they were still investigating with solemn expressions. They didn't want to miss a single shred of information. Chapter 1304. The calm and gentle, boundless tribulation had a faint smile on his face as he glanced at the other side. Was Chowda still hoping for a fluke at this stage? The descendant of Silent Destruction Ridge, Chu Su, had a head full of lustrous blue hair. He was ethereal and more beautiful than many women, but there was a strange glint in his eyes. The man and woman from Star Feather Sky were even more direct. The man was contemptuous of Chu Feng, while the woman was cold and elegant. Although she was beautiful, she was also looking at Chu Feng with disdain. At this juncture, it seemed to them that everything was set in stone. The first mountain had been massacred and flattened by the joint forces of the Forbidden Lands. The beautiful EU from the Primal Chaos Abyss had a complicated expression. No one knew what that elder of her race, the proud daughter of heaven from prehistoric times, would do after learning that Li Su's sect had been destroyed. The first mountain will no longer exist in this world. Someone chuckled. The beings from the Forbidden Lands looked at each other and smiled. All that was left was to raise their cups and drink together. The general situation had been decided, and there was nothing to worry about. At this moment, Jiaming of the fourth tribulation sparrow race had long since moved. He turned into a fierce bird and spread his wings as he rushed into a spatial tunnel towards the first mountain. The other forbidden lands were also making similar moves, all of them sending their servants to the first mountain. In the sky, at the edge of what was left of star feather sky, cries of grief shook the heavens. An old servant was trembling as he contacted the disciples of his race outside. Even his lips were trembling. It seemed that only a few of his clansmen were left. On the three-way battlefield, the young man and woman from Star Feather Sky wore snow-white, Tao-patterned sea conches. They were both emitting a crystalline luster and emitting echoes. This was their clansmen contacting them. The two immediately put their ears to listen. The rustling sound was so loud that they couldn't hear it clearly. The two frowned. This three-way battlefield was once a forbidden land that had been blasted into ruins by the first mountain. There were too many magnetic essences in the complex terrain, and the domains were in chaos. The signal source was disrupted and couldn't be picked up clearly. Is it Uncle Chung? We can't hear you clearly. What's the matter? Did we obtain some incredible scripture after massacring the first mountain? The two were too optimistic and wore joyful smiles. Amidst the broken walls and rubble at the edge of Star Feather Sky, the old servant was about to go crazy. He couldn't even receive his message at such a critical juncture, which made him collapse. The main reason was that the distance was too far. This forbidden area of theirs was beyond the heavens, and the journey was too long. Ordinary evolvers would not be able to fly from the ground, even if they were to fly for hundreds of lifetimes. The same thing happened in the extermination ridge. A middle-aged man with disheveled hair looked at the forbidden ground in front of him. All the mountains had disappeared, leaving only the boundary. He let out a beast-like howl that shook the heavens. Then, he contacted his clansmen outside. At this moment, Chu Su, the descendant of Extermination Ridge, was still laughing on the three-way battlefield. Suddenly, a blood-patterned coral pendant on his neck lit up and emitted noise. Fifth uncle, is that you? What's the matter? The eyes of the middle-aged man in Desolation Ridge turned red. He was so anxious that he wanted to break the Tao blood coral in his hand. Fifth uncle, don't tell me you want me to go to the first mountain to split the spoils. Don't worry, I'm not far from there. I'll be there soon. On the battlefield, Chu Su's long blue hair was shiny and shiny. He wore a radiant smile and was in a good mood. F***K. The middle-aged man in Extermination Ridge was so angry that he destroyed a star remnant with a kick, causing the mountains and rivers to rumble. He roared continuously. Finally, the descendant of Extermination Ridge, Chu Su, heard something clearer. There seemed to be a roar similar to his fifth uncle's usual behavior when he was excited. Ha! Fifth uncle, you're so excited. It seems we've obtained something amazing after massacring the first mountain. Don't tell me you've dug out an ultimate weapon? Or have we uncovered the greatest mystery in the history of the first mountain? He was smiling, and he was excited as well. At the border of Extermination Ridge, the middle-aged man was so angry that he smashed the Tao blood coral's transmission device. He became irritable and then went berserk. In the end, he cursed, "Go to hell, I don't care about you anymore." Jiaming, the driver of the 4 Tribulation Sparrow race, the servants of the Primal Chaos Abyss, and the trusted aides of Extermination Ridge rushed to the first mountain through the spatial passage. Of course, they rushed out of the spatial passage when they were still several thousand kilometers away. They didn't dare to teleport to the actual destination and only rushed over. Then, they were astonished to find that the first mountain was still there, just like before. Most importantly, the mountain-protecting light screen was now transparent. They could see number 9, holding a broom with flowing patterns of the Great Tao, sweeping the battlefield. They were petrified. What was going on? That ogre number 9 was still there. Were the experts of the various races. Additionally, there was more than one number 9. They also saw a few shriveled beings with the same temperament as number 9. They were strolling around like demonic lords. At this moment, Jim Ming and the others went crazy. Then, they were scared to death. This was a major incident. Even their own ancestors had failed. Not only them, but many people had also arrived. They were all experts far stronger than Jiaming and the others. They rushed over to investigate the situation and were all dumbfounded. Everyone was shaken to find that the first mountain was unscathed. Not even a hair was lost. Did this mean that the ancestors of the various races were doomed? Jiaming and the others were on the verge of collapse. When they thought of their young masters looking down on Chowdo on the battlefield, they wanted nothing more than to grow more legs and rush back immediately. Number 9 and the others didn't pay any attention to Jiaming and the others. They had completely ignored these small characters because there were too many experts spying on them from outside the mountain. Sai, did we seal the mountain too early? I see a lot of long-legged people outside. Beautiful groups, heavenly groups, and large groups. They're all in groups. Number 9 was drooling and somewhat regretful. However, Number 7 reminded them that they had to seal the mountain and reorganize it. The domains here had been badly damaged. It would be a big problem if someone attacked again. They definitely couldn't activate the remnant sword light in the broken world again. Otherwise, once it was completely used up, the world would be overturned. Something even more terrifying than the end of an era or the descent of a great calamity would happen. The light barrier on the first mountain was thick and no longer transparent. Number 9 and the others were applying seals. All kinds of great Tao patterns appeared, and the rumbling was deafening. Run, go, and report to the young master. Leave the summer province. Don't ever set foot near the first mountain again. The decline of our race's fortunes has arrived. Jiaming and the others had gone crazy. They could still be considered somewhat loyal as they ran madly back on the road. In truth, they had no choice but to be loyal. They were descendants of the Forbidden Lands. Even if their bloodline was diluted, it couldn't change this fact. They were bound together for shame and glory. As a fourth tribulation sparrow, Jiaming had 4 layers of light barriers around his body. His wings were about to break from flying. He finally found a teleportation altar and rushed over with his feathers flying. The followers of the Forbidden Lands also rushed over while burning their blood. They activated their domains and rushed madly toward the 3 battlefields. On the battlefield, the 4th tribulation sparrow, Jia Wuliang, was smiling warmly. He was trying to recruit Chu Feng, saying that he wouldn't kill him and that he could just follow him. However, his expression turned cold after being rejected by Chu Feng. His temperament was completely different from before. He was no longer gentle, but full of killing intent. The disciples of Terminator Ridge and Xing Yutian were looking down on Chu Feng like a cat toying with a mouse. They were waiting to see him make a fool of himself. If nothing unexpected happened, the news would arrive soon. In truth, Chu Feng was already prepared at this moment. He had scouted out the terrain in the dark and arranged his heaven escape talisman and domains. He was ready to break out of the encirclement. Bang! In the distance, a spatial tunnel exploded and Jiaming's group rushed out. Ah, you're back. How was it? Whether or not the first mountain was completely massacred, tell everyone here the details. Chu Su from Terminator Ridge smiled. Speak. Jia Wuliang nodded coldly. In the distance, Jiaming's group was on the verge of going crazy. How could they tell the truth? If they did, someone would probably force them to stay. Even though they tried their best to hide it, their intense emotions were still revealed. However, no one thought too much about it. They all thought that the first mountain had been destroyed. They had personally seen the glorious accomplishments there and had an audience with their ancestors. Now, they were indescribably excited and were in a hurry to relay the news. The people of the 9-headed bird race burst into laughter after seeing this. With Empyrean Scarlet Void in the lead, the 9-headed bird king, Chi Feng, and the others followed behind him. They walked forward and saluted Jia Wuliang. Congratulations, young master. They congratulated him in unison. What the F *CK, Confucius said, congratulations, my *SS. Ming of Calamity is really going crazy. Chu Su from Terminator Ridge was the first to laugh. Jiaming's group wanted to report this in secret, but at this moment, some of the Forbidden Lands finally contacted their disciples. In Terminator Ridge, the middle-aged man found a giant Great Tao blood-patterned coral transmission platform in the ruins. Its power was many times greater, and it had a strong connection. Chu-Su, do you want to die? Can you hear me? Take a look at what's happening right now. Get your ass back here and run. At this moment, Chu-Su's blood-colored pendant glowed and emitted a clear roar. Moreover, a projection appeared in front of him. Then, the entire place fell silent. Everyone heard it, and everyone saw the projection screen. They were all shocked. Was that Terminator Ridge? Weren't there towering mountains and precipitous ridges? But now, a giant black hole had replaced the vast land of the central region. What had become of that place? Everyone was shaken. The forbidden land of the Yang world, Terminator Ridge, had been broken through. The scene was deathly silent. Only the forbidden land creature continued to roar and berate Chu-Su, asking him if he heard him and to scram. The so-called glory of Terminator Ridge no longer existed. No one spoke. They were all listening and looking at the terrifying projection. That was until Chu Feng broke the silence. He took a few steps forward and said, "There's a huge hole in your house." "God damn it," Master said. Chu-Su was about to go berserk. He was already possessed and in a bad mood. Hearing Chowda's words, he almost exploded on the spot. His face was pale, and he was about to go crazy. "There's really a hole in my house," the strange dragon muttered. While everyone was shocked, they were also speechless. Chowda's words had come true. This was too strange. What kind of rotten mouth was this? What kind of jinx was this? Some of the creatures in the Forbidden Land were unconvinced. Then boundless coldness surged into their bodies. This result was too terrifying. "Young master, run." One sword pierced through the heavens, traversing through the ages. That legendary person's strand of sword energy pierced through my ancestral court. At this time, the old servant from Starfeather Sky was also wailing and shouting. He finally connected to the special Great Tao conch on the young man and woman's body. It was screaming and transmitting the scene. Then, everyone saw that the Starfeather Sky that was normally flowing with stellar rivers and resplendent radiance was now completely dark, pitch black. There was a large hole there, deathly still. No. The young man and woman from Starfeather Sky also cried out. Their eyes were about to split open and their hearts were collapsing. Was their clan finished? The ancestral court of the once high and mighty Forbidden Land had been broken through. "There's a hole in your house, too." Chu Feng walked forward with his hands behind his back and said, "Pooh." The young man and woman both coughed out blood. Their mental states were ruined and they were about to go crazy. This was simply an unendurable conclusion. After being ridiculed and provoked by Chu Feng, their vision went dark. Their entire bodies staggered and their bodies continuously swayed. Then, Chu Feng walked forward again, arriving not far from the beautiful EU from the primal chaos abyss and saying, "Your house was originally a hole. Everyone, I hashtag yin%. EU was on the verge of collapse." Hot tears rolled down her face. She didn't know how her family was doing, but from the miserable state of Starfeather Sky and Still Destruction Ridge, her family probably wasn't doing well. The group of Forbidden Land creatures were all trembling, their mental states about to explode. Their entire bodies were convulsing. Every single one of them felt as if the sky of their lives was collapsing. Their hearts were filled with haze. This was an unendurable change. Together with the shameful, hateful, and evil demon on the side, Chowda, he reminded them one by one that there was a hole in their family. Who could endure it? All of them are holes. Chu Feng sighed. Chapter 1305. A cold wind swept across the vast battlefield, carrying with it a whimper. Great flags fluttered in the wind as they stood tall on the cold, dark red ground, stirring up clouds and mist. There were many people on the 3 battlefields, but not a single sound could be heard. The news was too shocking. The Forbidden Land had been turned into a pit. This was like a legend among legends. At first, people didn't dare to believe it, but the curtains fell. This was the final result of the battle. The beings in the Forbidden Land had personally admitted it and urgently contacted the disciples to evacuate. The first mountain was destined to shake the world. Breaking through the Forbidden Land was a glorious achievement. At this time, Jia Wuliang of the Four Tribulation Sparrow race, Yu of the Primal Chaos Abyss, and the young man and woman from Starfeather Heaven were all pale. The urgent message from the clan shocked them and made them tremble. They were the descendants of the high and mighty Forbidden Land. Their clansmen looked down on the world and commanded it. But everything had changed today. The ancestral court had been broken through, and only the periphery was left. How many clansmen would be left? This was the turning point of the clan's fate. Could the remaining clansmen still do as they pleased? Jia Wuliang, Chu Su, and the others wanted to escape immediately. They had lost everything, and this battlefield had become a dangerous place. They could no longer move as they pleased. From now on, they would have to be careful with their words and actions. The ancestral court had been turned into a big hole. This was the most direct manifestation of the clan's decline. Everyone, please take action and capture a few people. Chu Feng shouted. He wanted to invite others to attack the beings from the Forbidden Land and make them all stay. But Qi Rong and the others' expressions changed. No one dared to act rashly. After all, those were beings from the Forbidden Land. They had been a mountain in people's hearts for millions of years, and all races were afraid of them. Even though Silent Destruction Ridge and Star Feather Heaven had been pierced through by the heavenly sword Qi, no one dared to act rashly. This was the deterrence left behind by the long years. Moreover, if there was a big fish that escaped the net and a supreme expert jumped out, they could still bathe the mountains and rivers in blood. It was unbearable. Not only that, but there were also terrifying energy ripples and blood energy surging from the battlefield. It first swept away a few disciples and then rushed towards Chu Feng. Rumble. Heavenly Venerable Yushang had taken action. The old man was sincerely on Chu Feng's side, and no matter how the situation developed, he would always protect Chu Feng wholeheartedly. Fierce astral winds surged, and the surging blood energy retreated. It didn't linger and didn't dare to kill either. It just escaped. Jia Wuliang, Yu, Chu Su, and the others from the Forbidden Land had disappeared. An Empyrean-level life form had rescued them. Heavenly Venerable Yushang's body shook, and his expression was solemn. He didn't chase after Chu Feng. His body emitted a gentle halo that protected Chu Feng within. Everyone was shocked. At this type of time, at this type of critical juncture, there were still restricted Empyrean-level creatures that rushed over, or it could be said that they were originally near the battlefield, rescuing those disciples. There were some who rejoiced that they didn't go to capture the creatures of the Forbidden Land and didn't offend them. Their hearts were pounding endlessly. However, everyone could tell that the Empyrean from the Forbidden Land didn't dare waste any time. He didn't have the courage to cut off all means of retreat and fight to the death. After just a slight contact, he fled in panic. The first mountain was in the same summer province as the other three battlefields. That celestial, venerable level cultivator's heart was already beating fast. He was afraid that the old monsters of the first mountain were nearby, and he didn't know if he could leave alive. It was a pity. Chu Feng felt that it was a pity that he hadn't been able to kill them. Everyone present was greatly shocked today. Chao had become the final winner, and all of the Forbidden Land's creatures had fled for their lives. In an instant, many people's minds were stirred. Little Daoist Chao, we couldn't react in time, just now, Qi Rong said awkwardly. He wanted to ease the atmosphere. At this point, everyone could see that the first mountain was about to rise. It wasn't a forbidden land, but just one of the famous mountains and rivers. How could it be so terrifying? Senior, when will the secret realm be opened? Chu Feng asked lightly, a hint of mockery on his lips. Now, that number 9 and the others had one, he didn't really care about the secret realm. He just mentioned it casually. He wanted to rush to the first mountain immediately to understand the situation and to prevent the creatures of the Forbidden Lands from doing something desperate. There were still people lingering here. No problem. I'll arrange it right away. Qi Rong nodded. At this time, everyone else looked at Chu Feng with burning eyes. He was a disciple of the first mountain, and the only one in the world. If they could befriend such a person and tie him to their own clan, they wouldn't have to worry about glory and brilliance in the future. Some of the old guys looked at Chu Feng as if they were staring at a piece of fine jade. Of course, they didn't dare to do anything out of line. Who would dare to do anything? However, many people were thinking about whether there were any outstanding women suitable for marriage in their clans. If they could marry, everything would be fine. Were it not for Chu Feng's identity, there would definitely be a scene of a son-in-law capture. Many young beauties looked at Chu Feng with burning eyes. No one had expected Chao de sect to be so freakish. Number 9 and the others had actually defeated a group of monsters. Of course, there were also people who were afraid. For example, the dragon race and the 9-headed avian race. They were all shocked and horrified. They had never thought that the first mountain would be able to turn the tables. Chao had the last laugh. Jie Wuyang, EU, and the others left in defeat. This kind of world-shaking change, this kind of terrifying reversal, left them at a loss of what to do, all of them panicking. Even the 9-headed avian race's patriarch Chi Su and the silver dragon race's patriarchs were trembling inside. They were indeed panicking. How could this be the outcome? They didn't dare to leave because their clans were too big. If they fled like this, what would happen to their clansmen? Moreover, they had already been punished by number 9 and experienced the pain of being used as food. It couldn't be worse, right? Of course, the 9-headed bird race was also restless. After all, they had once pledged their loyalty to the 4 tribulation sparrow race. Not long ago, their words were extremely respectful, but when they faced Chu Feng, they had a different attitude. So now they were terrified. At this moment, the world was shaken. No one had expected that the first mountain would destroy several restricted areas and cause a huge uproar. The Heavenly Morning Post and Tonghua newspaper immediately released the news. The internet in the world of the living was almost paralyzed, and the whole world was shaken. The first mountain is actually so powerful. As expected of Li Su's sect, it actually blasted a huge hole in several restricted areas. The whole world was in heated discussion and shaken. The experts of the 4 tribulation sparrow race, Star Feather Heaven, Still Destruction Ridge, and the others who had fought their way to the first mountain were all killed by a single sword strike. The ancestral halls of the various races had collapsed as a result. In addition, the martial madman's weapon incarnation was damaged and had directly fled. The entire world of the living could no longer calm down and was completely boiling. This is simply unimaginable. The first mountain's foundation is actually so deep. We all thought it was destined to be destroyed. Some people sighed with complicated expressions. What kind of foundation is this? How many places in the world can stand shoulder to shoulder with the first mountain? At most, there are only 3 or 5 places left, right? Some old monsters were discussing, speaking in an uncertain tone. The sword chief from the first mountain had truly frightened many people. Who in the world could withstand such a peerless sharpness? Perhaps only the nodes of other branches of evolutionary civilizations could do so. That's only the sword Tao remnant of an old friend. It doesn't belong to this world. The real first mountain isn't that strong. After that sword attack, the first mountain will most likely seal itself because it can no longer unleash such a sword attack. There were also people who spoke in a more rational manner. At this moment, all the races were discussing this matter in secret. The whole world was shaken, mainly because the first mountain's display of such a foundation had frightened many people. However, not everyone was afraid of the first mountain. Among them, there were reincarnation hunters who were currently in dispute. Some people want to go to the first mountain to find out what was going on. No matter what kind of foundation, no matter how terrifying the forbidden existence, we have to revere reincarnation. There's no need for us to be afraid. Who can pass the trial of reincarnation? Behind us, shut up, don't say any more. I suspect that the master of the sword chief from the first mountain is more or less related to reincarnation. That person from back then, the outside world didn't know about this secret discussion. Otherwise, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. At this moment, there were still people who dared to talk about the first mountain. Moreover, they knew some details and were fearless. This was an extremely terrifying matter. Some people were shocked, some people were afraid, and some people were excited. On this day, there were heated discussions everywhere in the world of the living. Everyone was talking about the first mountain under the heavens. Among them, the major powers who had set up the bet wanted to cry, but had no tears. They had suffered miserable losses. Who would have thought that the first mountain could make a comeback? Moreover, it was such a ferocious mess. Chowda, I want to marry you. Amidst the clamor everywhere, Chu Feng naturally became famous. As the only disciple of the first mountain who was currently walking in the outside world, it was impossible not to pay attention to him. Some daring young girls made all sorts of noise on the internet in the world of the living, creating all sorts of topics. Chowda, I'm willing to watch the morning glow with you every morning. On a skyscraper, an extremely popular girl who was a national goddess shouted. Some people interpreted this as a very artistic way of telling him that he would sleep together every day and wake up together to watch the morning glow together. Many people were speechless. There were also other girls who scolded the readers for being shameless. My heart is broken. Goddess Wu Mei actually expressed her stance like this. On this day, the first mountain penetrated the ancestral courts of several realms, and the words of the national goddess Wu may have destroyed my youth. Some people wailed. Whether it was deliberately teasing or deliberately creating topics to attract popularity and traffic for their own online platforms, there were many discussions about Chowda. Back then, the first mountain had produced Li Su, and now there was Chowda. Many people were guessing how far he could go and what realm he could reach. Some great sects were evaluating him and were envious. Auntie, why don't you marry Chowda? Even on the three-way battlefield, Xiao Yao was secretly sending voice transmissions to his aunt. Of course, there was a hint of ridicule in his tone. The Tao race's goddess, Xiao Shiyun, rolled her eyes at him. Then, she pulled his ear with one hand, causing him to scream. Auntie, I truly feel that the two of you are a good match. The pavilion closest to the water enjoys moonlight first. Think about it seriously. Although Xiao Yao was screaming, he was stubborn and still secretly suggested. Discussions were going on all over the world. There was no peace in the world. The first mountain, number 9, heaven-piercing sword Chi, that legendary person, Chowda, and others all became keywords in different domains. This was especially true in some domains. That sword that had swept through the ages, and that legendary person had caused a magnitude 12 earthquake. Some living corpses that had lived for endless years and had been buried in famous mountains and great rivers, for who knew how long woke up from their slumber. They faintly sighed and contacted some other old fellows that had also lived for an incomparably long time. They were discussing in secret. Amidst the clamor, Chu Feng moved. He wanted to rush back to the first mountain and see number 9. This was because, for him, there was no place more attractive than that. Moreover, it was likely that the outside world wasn't very peaceful right now. At this time, he had become the focal point of all races. There were many things that Chu Feng wanted to ask number 9 face to face. Chapter 1306. Chu Feng moved out. He was very cautious because he was now the center of attention. All eyes were on the first mountain, and as a disciple of the outside world, he would most likely be under the spotlight and scrutinized by all parties. This was very dangerous. After all, he wasn't a true disciple of the first mountain. He was now preparing to verify his identity. If he had number 9 as his backer and the first mountain, a sect that could penetrate several forbidden areas, where couldn't he go? Who would dare cause trouble for him in the future? Even if he shouted to the outside world that he was the human trafficker Chu Feng and that he was one of the 10 most notorious fugitives, G-Dade, no one would dare to kill him. When that moment came, where couldn't he go in the Yang realm? He wouldn't need to hide anymore. At that time, after avenging the little netherworld, he could cultivate in his spare time, drink with the black yak and the old donkey, or chat with Xiao Yao's aunt and the monkey's sister. Chu Feng was elated and let his imagination run wild. He was already on his way. Along the way, he solemnly hinted to the black yak and the old donkey's reincarnation that they should be careful and not recognize him for now. That was because the dangerous period hadn't passed yet. He needed to go to the first mountain and get a real result. Brother, slow down. This flatterer, the strange dragon, could be considered an expert at changing the direction of a wind. Not long ago, he had wanted to abandon Chu Feng and run away, but now he was following beside him and didn't treat himself as an outsider. It was as if he was another nominal disciple of the first mountain. Flatterer, someone said, taunting Long Dayu. Who? Long Dayu cried out. Someone had recognized him and knew he was a dragon. One had to know that he was in his human form and had used the trump cards of his previous life. Ordinary people couldn't see through him at all. Then he felt a cold breeze on his neck, as if someone was blowing cold air at him. It was as if a malicious spirit had possessed him. Master! A voice came from his neck. Long Dayu reached behind him and quickly touched it. Then he cried out miserably, Maggot, it's you again. This cry was a little heart-wrenching. He was a dragon himself, but he had suffered greatly at the hands of certain insects in his previous life. He had a psychological shadow and was very sensitive to squirming things. The creature on his collar immediately flew into a rage. It was incomparably furious. Being called a maggot by this fellow again, this was intolerable. Poo-pee-you. The fat silkworm spat out silk and sealed Long Dayu's head and face with it. F***CK. I'm the undead silkworm. If you dare to call me your relative again and spout nonsense, I won't let you off. The fat silkworm threatened fiercely. Moreover, he persevered, climbing up to Long Dayu's neck and then to his head. During this process, the two of them used magical force to compete, both shining, energy colliding. Long Dayu roared, I don't care if you're an undead silkworm or a maggot. You're all the same. You're nothing good. I'm warning you. I'm an unnamed disciple of the first mountain. Don't mess with me. This was just a small interlude. Chu Feng was a bit surprised that the people from the Silkworm Valley had actually come, and they seemed to be on his side. My ancestors are related to the first mountain. This was the fat silkworm's explanation. It was white and fat, sitting on Long Dayu's head and spitting out silk, unwilling to go down. Along the way, Chu Feng was relatively safe because he was accompanied by a large group of people. Heavenly Venerable Yushang was at his side, so there was no need to say much. Hao Yuan had come. The old six-eared macaque was also with them, and Heavenly Venerable Qi Rong and the others were also following. There were also super-evolved beings from Guan Province and Yi Province. As for the monkey, Xiao Yao, Peng Wanli, Li Jiuxiao, Ji Kaixian, and the others, they were all at the back. They were all going to the first mountain. Everyone was very curious and also very shocked. They all wanted to see what the first mountain looked like after the battle. Golden rainbows filled the sky, and silver light erupted. With Heavenly Venerables leading the way, their speed was extremely fast, and they arrived in front of the first mountain. The first mountain hadn't changed, and it was still the same. It was a broken mountain, and the bottom of the mountain was hazy. However, the remnant great Tao traces here were still very terrifying, and even Heavenly Venerables were horrified. Apart from them, there were many other experts in this area. They had rushed over from all over the world to investigate the truth of this place. Today, such a major event had happened, and all parties were seeking proof. Chu Feng didn't hesitate. He immediately entered the ground and was about to charge into the light screen. Many people watched from afar behind him. Bang! This time, even though Chu Feng wore armor refined from the reincarnation earth, he was still repelled. He had actually failed. He frowned, but he didn't dare to use the stone jar in front of everyone. That would cause great trouble. Ninth Master! Chu Feng shouted. At the same time, he continuously urged his energy towards the light screen, wanting to awaken number 9 and have him come to receive him. Without a sound, a withered figure appeared in the light screen. He was like a vengeful spirit that had lived for millions of years. His body was withered, like a swollen piece of human skin, and his hair was disheveled. The mountain has already been sealed, and there are still people coming to deliver legs. This elder spoke faintly, like the sigh of a vengeful spirit. Uncle Master! Chu Feng hurriedly shouted. It wasn't number 9, but he didn't dare to call him anything else. He directly called him Uncle Master, and then hurriedly asked, "Where's Ninth Master?" Chu Feng stared closely. This elder actually somewhat resembled number 9, but his temperament was completely different. He couldn't tell if they were the same person who had transformed. "Who are you?" This ghost-like elder was suspicious. Behind him, everyone's eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. What was going on? Even someone from their own sect didn't know Chowda. Hadn't he come out from here? Moreover, many people had seen him go in and invite the great demon number 9 out. Old 6, don't scare people. Fortunately, number 9 appeared at the crucial moment, but blood was dripping from the corner of his mouth. It was unknown what kind of creature's thigh he was eating. Number 9 looked at Chu Feng and said with a smile, "Why have you come?" "To return to the mountain to show my respect to Ninth Master," said Chu Feng. "This isn't a place for you to stay, and you've come too late," said number 9, telling Chu Feng that the mountain had been sealed and he couldn't enter. Chu Feng was momentarily thrown into disarray. He couldn't enter the first mountain from now on? Moreover, number 9 had said this in front of everyone. This made his heart pound. This was tantamount to breaking down the halo on his head. This wasn't good news for him. "Ninth Master, I haven't mastered my skills yet. I don't want to leave the mountain." Chu Feng said hurriedly, "Forget it. I didn't teach you anything. You have your own fate. The first mountain isn't suitable for you." Number 9 was all smiles. Momentarily, Chu Feng's face turned green. His previous fantasies of drinking with the Black Yak and chatting with a certain fairy after his revenge had all gone to hell. The current situation wasn't good. Was number 9 doing this on purpose? Behind him, the group of people was stunned. Then, they looked at each other in dismay and felt it was quite odd. Just what was Chowda's relationship with the first mountain? Some people were suspicious and revealed odd expressions. Fortunately, number 9 erupted with radiance at this moment. A screen of light shone through and enveloped Chu Feng as she conversed with him in secret. Everyone could see that the relationship between the two wasn't ordinary. "Ninth Master, are you trying to trick me?" Chu Feng cried out. Number 9 said, "The people of the first mountain all killed their way to fame. They've never relied on their sections. For example, Li Su Koff, he likes to backstab others. Let's not talk about that. For example, the others, they're all peerless heroes, but this one should be dead." Chu Feng was speechless. Was this a positive example? They were all negative examples. "Besides, you're not a disciple of the first mountain. You should leave," number 9 said. "Old 9, there's something strange about this person. There's a big problem." At this moment, number 6 was incomparably solemn. That was because his eyes were like two green golden spears that were about to pierce through Chu Feng. He stared fixedly at him and sensed his aura. Number 9 immediately spoke in an extremely solemn manner. "Don't touch him. I've already seen him. We shouldn't provoke him. Let him go and ignore him." Chu Feng was surprised. What was the meaning of this? Number 9 and number 6 attitude was extremely cold and solemn. Chu Feng didn't understand. He had no idea what was going on. "Ninth Master, what's wrong?" Chu Feng asked. Number 9 said seriously, "You came out from that place, and we can't afford to provoke you. It's best if we don't get involved with each other. Let's just consider what happened in the past as good karma. You should leave. We don't want to cause trouble." Chu Feng was petrified. How could these two withered figures say such things? In fact, if outsiders knew about this, they would be even more shocked. It was like the sky was falling and the earth was sinking. Many people felt as if their souls were trembling. The first mountain was extremely terrifying. It had just smashed several forbidden areas into huge holes, and its sword chi reached the heavens. It traversed the past, present, and future. And now, there were actually people and things that it feared. "Ninth Master, what are you talking about? Why don't I understand?" Chu Feng asked. He really wanted to say, "Who am I? Why is it like this?" "There's a big problem with the place you were born in and the place you came from. We don't want to get involved," number 9 said faintly. Her voice was very low, like the whispers of a malicious spirit. Chapter 1307. Chu Feng was apprehensive. Could it be that there was something strange about his background? It actually made number 9 so apprehensive. One had to know that this was the first mountain. Had number 9 already seen through his past? It was truly frightening to be together with such a being. This was also the reason why Chu Feng didn't like to stay with powerful beings. He didn't have any secrets and would be seen through if he wasn't careful. But what was so wrong with his roots and the place he came from? He felt that it was very normal and not at all strange. At the very least, it was far inferior to the Yang realm. From the cultivation ceiling to the accumulation of scriptures, from the evolutionary sects to the deep level of civilization, they weren't on the same order of magnitude as the Yang realm. Chu Feng asked, "Ninth Master, why is it getting more and more frightening? What's going on?" At most, my evolutionary aptitude is number 1 in all of history. Everything else is SOSO. Number 9 tilted her head and looked at him, her green pupils very deep. Number 6 was deep in thought. He glanced at Chu Feng and then at number 9. This thick-skinned fellow, did he really come from that place? You're probably the most shameless in the world. Chu Feng's expression immediately darkened. How could he speak? Could he have a pleasant conversation? Did he even know how to speak? You're not convinced? If it weren't for your background, Number 6 licked his dry lips and stared at Chu Feng's body full of vitality. He gulped down a mouthful of saliva. Chu Feng was scared and felt disgusted at the same time. He braced himself and asked again. He really didn't feel that there was anything special about his background. All of a sudden, he was shaken. Could it be that number 9 had seen the stone jar on his body and recognized it, mistakenly believing that he had a great background? Could it be that this stone jar was connected to the heavens and penetrated the earth? Could it be that even the first mountain was apprehensive of it? Was there once a person or a power related to the stone jar that had shaken the past and present? He felt that this was a possibility. Otherwise, he really couldn't find anything extraordinary about his roots. In terms of the past, he was far inferior to the orthodoxies of the Yang realm. On his body, the stone jar and the 3 seeds were the most special. Ninth Master, are you able to determine where I came from by looking at some of my artifacts? Chu Feng asked. While speaking, he took out the heaven-escaping talisman that old Gu had given him, the yellow talisman that Yushang had given him, and some other ancient weapons, and showed them to the 2 skinny old men. Of course, this was done on purpose. They were all miscellaneous items, not including the stone jar. He was hoping that the other party might not have noticed the stone jar. What rubbish are you talking about? What we care about is your background. It has nothing to do with the items on your body, number 6 said. Chu Feng was shocked. It was not because of the stone jar. The other party did not notice the abnormality of the stone jar and did not even know that he had such a thing on him. It seemed that the stone jar was more mysterious than he had imagined. At this time, the stone jar was hidden in the small gray grinding stone within his body. It had formed its own universe and was isolated from the outside world. Perhaps it could also be said that the small gray grinding stone engraved with special symbols was more special. It was isolated from the outside world, and even a creature like number 9 could not detect the artifact hidden inside. Chu Feng dared not probe any further. He was afraid that he would overreach himself and the other party would really spy on him. For a moment, he was somewhat lost in thought. He slowly said, Ninth Master, my background is very clean. What are you guys so concerned about? He looked very perplexed. It wasn't all an act. He really did have this kind of doubt. Why? I've already said that you come from that place. There's something wrong with your background, number 9 said. In a trance, he seemed to see the dim trajectory of a few invisible hands. Meanwhile, Chu Feng was increasingly puzzled. He came from the lesser Yin realm. To be more certain, he was born on Earth, a very ordinary planet with life. How was it different? He was silent and revealed a pensive expression. He thought of many things. Could it be that number 9 said that he had gone through reincarnation, gone to the ultimate place with his physical body, and then successfully arrived in the Yang realm? Was there a problem with this? Those who reincarnated with physical bodies were probably rare since ancient times. Perhaps there hadn't even been one. He was the only exception. Chu Feng was guessing. Could it be that the place number 9 said he came from, the place he came from, was referring to the end of reincarnation? Number 9 said, "You come from the lesser yang realm, from a special planet. I saw a special brilliance on your exuberant soul light, like some kind of imprint. Even though it's already very dim, it's still faintly discernible." At this point, he displayed a special kind of divine ability. Unexpectedly, some simple scenes of Chu Feng's life's past actually appeared. This made Chu Feng break out in cold sweat and his scalp go numb. There really were no secrets to speak of when facing this kind of life form. He was certain that the first time he came here with old Gu, number 9 would have definitely seen through him. However, he also had doubts in his heart. That was because number 9 had missed many crucial things when he was tracing back to the past. For example, when it came to reincarnation and the stone jar, they were all fragments. They were all blank and directly ignored. Yet follower number 9 didn't sense anything. Reincarnation had endless secrets. No one knew how profound the level involved was, and it was difficult to trace it back. This was understandable. But the stone jar was actually like this too. It was even a bit more mysterious. This made Chu Feng apprehensive. Chu Feng now completely understood that he had been overthinking things before. It seemed that all the oddities were because he came from Earth. But what did Earth have? How could a living being from the Yang realm know about this place? Compared to the vast and complete world, what did the entire lesser Yang realm amount to, let alone Earth? A celestial venerable could pierce through it with a finger and completely flatten it. But that wasn't right either. Back then, when the great martial deity descended, he actually had to obey the laws of the lesser Yang realm. His cultivation was suppressed to the limit and his strength plummeted. It was also because of this that the great martial deity was actually injured when he fought with the heaven-warping Yao Yao. In the end, his Taoist body even died in the abyss. Perhaps this could explain two things. First, the laws of the lesser Yang realm were actually extremely powerful and hid secrets. Second, it reflected Yao Yao's heaven-defying nature. She was actually able to reach such a stage in this broken world. Although Chu Feng was in an extremely bad state at that time, his soul and blood were injured, and he was almost destroyed, he could still vaguely sense that at the last moment, Yao Yao's face was pale. She pushed him in the stone jar out of the abyss while she herself sank. Yao Yao was still there at that time, but he didn't know what happened to her in the end. His heart sank every time he thought of this. He wished he could return to the lesser Yang realm and explore the abyss again. Chu Feng let his imagination run wild in his heart. All kinds of old scenes of the lesser Yang realm emerged in his mind. Earth, the abyss, the universe, the starry sky, the various races, and so on. But he was still seriously doubtful. Did the lesser Yang realm and Earth really have some extraordinary energy? It's only because we have this big flag on the first mountain. Otherwise, we really can't see through that place, number 9 said faintly. Then, a tattered big flag appeared behind him and fluttered there. Following that, the scene he traced became increasingly clear and a projection of Earth appeared. That's right, this is my birthplace. It's very ordinary and is almost a world in the age of Dharma decline. I don't know what's so frightening about it, Senior. Chu Feng said. Since the other party had traced where he came from and knew his roots, he was calm. Because we sensed a few invisible hands evolving there. Number 9's expression was solemn. The big flag behind him fluttered, and the scene was somewhat terrifying. The Earth's outer appearance seemed to be collapsing, but it also seemed to be distorted. It was a stretch of blur, and there were indescribable traces brought about by a few invisible hands. In fact, the big hands couldn't be seen, but they gave people a certain special feeling. Gradually, a special trace appeared. During this process, the big flag fluttered and then quickly dimmed. This is that legendary place. There really is someone who dares to act and set foot in it. Amazing, number 9 said faintly. His voice was very low, like an old ghost with one foot in the grave who could die at any time. He then said, It's precisely because of this that we don't want to get involved, and we're even more unwilling to get tangled up with you. Right? Double quotation mark. I come from Earth. That place is very ordinary and has never produced an expert. Perhaps I'm that planet's #1 expert since ancient times. I don't understand what you guys are so apprehensive about. At this point, Chu Feng naturally wasn't afraid to speak of his identity and past. He was very direct and excessively frank. #1 expert since ancient times? Heh, you're thinking too much. #9 shook his head. His smile was a little frightening. Chu Feng revealed a puzzled expression and said, "Isn't that the case? I admit that the place I came from is a little declined. In terms of evolutionary civilization alone, it's far too lacking compared to this place. We don't understand that place, either, but according to the legends, even though that place has already become a ruin, it's still unfathomable. The waters are too deep. You simply don't know what actually happened there during the endless years. It's precisely because it was so glorious in the past that there are still supreme beings who can't forget it even now." #9 sighed. His voice was still very low, but it reverberated beside Chu Feng's ears like a clap of thunder. It gave him a headache and left him at a loss as to what to do. #9 was apprehensive not because he had sensed his physical reincarnation or because he sensed the stone jar, but because he was born on Earth. What kind of situation was this? What kind of past did Earth have during the extremely long years ago? What kind of beings have been born there? This made Chu Feng's scalp numb. He vaguely felt that there were layers of fog. Even his own birthplace was strange and incomprehensible. How could there be such a terrifying past? And yet, he was completely unaware of it. Did someone from the Yang realm cross over and affect that legendary place? #9 revealed a solemn expression. The legendary place he was talking about was Earth, but it was a little strange to directly call it Earth when translated into the Yang realm language. "He's courting death," #6 said. #9 said, "That kind of place can't be touched. I wonder if the martial madman knows about this legendary place. If he knows that someone from his sect has gone to that planet to cause trouble, he'll probably slap him to death. The martial madman is very powerful. This time, he only dispatched a single weapon to attack the first mountain and was able to fight to the death with you." #9. He can't be underestimated. If his true body cultivates that kind of mysterious technique and comes out of seclusion, I reckon he'll be extremely powerful. He's most likely already embarked on that strange rumored path. His achievements are unpredictable and limitless. #6 said, "But I think he probably doesn't know about that legend and doesn't know about Earth. After all, he's still too young and hasn't even fully grown his hair. He's not like you and me, old antiques who wandered the long river of time with only skin and fur and were eventually abandoned." After hearing this, Chu Feng felt a little dizzy. It wasn't because of the martial madman's strength, but because of #6's tone. What did he mean by saying that the martial madman's hair hadn't fully grown? Just what era were #9 and #6 from? One had to know that the martial madman could dominate the Yang realm in prehistoric times, yet he was actually said to be young. Was what #6 said true? Were they the skin and fur of some creature that had been abandoned in the long river of time? Please enlighten me, Senior. Chu Feng was very serious as he asked #9 to point out the right path and dispel the clouds. I can't say much, nor do I want to interfere. Otherwise, there will be mishaps and unexpected disasters will befall us. #9 was very direct. The sword chi of the first mountain reached the heavens and penetrated the forbidden area. Why would there be such concerns? This really made Chu Feng apprehensive. I'll briefly mention it. I'll open the colorful scroll of history and show you the past events of that planet. Chapter 1308. A mottled ancient picture scroll slowly appeared. Countless proud sons of heaven were shedding blood as their blood dyed the vast universe's starry skies. 9 dragons were leading the way as they pierced through the darkness. A bronze coffin carried an unknown corpse. It was unknown whether it was a long journey or a defeat in battle. It was a lonely road as they returned home alone. It was a bleak and desolate scene. Following that, the scene changed. All kinds of chaotic times, All kinds of proud sons of heaven who ruled an era, and all kinds of heroes who suppressed a section of history appeared one after another. They broke through the darkness and pierced through eternity. There were tragic and stirring creatures that could be sung and moved to tears. There were peerlessly talented people who looked disdainfully at the past, present, and future. There were also heroes whose blood dyed the starry skies at the end of their road. They were unyielding and unyielding, and there were even heroes who faced the heavens and roared furiously. They didn't believe in reincarnation and only respected themselves. The scene changed faster and faster. In the end, those mottled years, those ancient matters, and the glory of the past all disappeared too quickly. They rotated at rapid speed and made one unable to keep up with it. Even someone as strong as Chu Feng's soul light couldn't react in time. This was a corner of the mottled picture scroll that number 9 activated. Chu Feng felt that this wasn't some recollection or some secret news. Instead, it was like an entire history of evolutionary civilization was covering the sky and covering the earth as it smashed towards him. It simply wanted to break his mind apart from the impact. The information was too numerous and messy. It was also too majestic. It was boundlessly terrifying. And this was just the beginning. Following that, there was an endless gray fog, all kinds of chilly winds howling angrily, and a bloody rain and foul wind. Many peerless experts who ruled over their own era all appeared. The heaven and earth were about to explode. What kind of battle scene was that? Chu Feng was deeply shocked. However, he really couldn't bear it. The information was too enormous. It was as if the entire history of the past was smashing towards him. He simply couldn't bear it. The most crucial thing was that all of this was bombarded over in an instant. These scenes, these brand fragments, and so on made Chu Feng's soul almost explode. There's too much. Highlight the main points. Take your time. I want to look at them one by one. Chu Feng bled from his 7 apertures. Everything in front of his eyes turned black, and he almost fainted. What he saw wasn't just images, but something else. Vaguely, the heroic spirits of those eras, the dark giants, the experts of good and evil, their murderous intents. The scenes of their battles seemed to be transmitted through this mottled picture scroll. So many people, the heroes of different eras, the champions of their own great eras. Such an interweaving, general trend was like a raging river or an explosion in the prehistoric world. It was unbearable. Stop! Chu Feng couldn't help but roar. He didn't want to throw his life away just to explore Earth's past. He really wanted to push aside the clouds and see the blue sky, trace the evolutionary history, and restore the glory of the past. However, number 9's method was extremely tyrannical. This was a legend he had heard of, and even a fragment of the truth he had personally witnessed. It was just like that, blotting out the sky and covering the earth, forcefully shoving it into Chu Feng's mind, like a giant wave sweeping through the sea of stars. The difference in evolution between the two was too great, and there was no consideration of whether Chu Feng could withstand it. Not to mention anything else, just the memory images of number 9's consciousness would be fatal if he were to impart them to a lower realm creature. Number 9 nodded and said, "There's something to it after all. I thought you couldn't even see a single image and couldn't see it. I didn't expect you to be able to bear it and actually pry into a portion of the imprint fragments." In truth, he was extremely astonished and couldn't calm his heart. What kind of identity and power did he have? Chu Feng had actually received these imprints and heard a portion of the secret there. Chu Feng immediately understood that number 9's words just now had no intention of letting him see the truth and was only probing him. "Ninth Master, you have to keep your word. Didn't you want to tell me some legends and some truths?" Chu Feng looked at him. Number 9's lush green gaze locked onto his body, wanting to see through him. That was because, contrary to expectations, Chu Feng actually held on for a moment and didn't immediately cry out from the impact of the images. Number 6's expression was also grave as he said, "It's strange. He can actually receive some of the imprints you transmitted over. He really is worthy of being a creature that walked out from that place. Look at the special radiance in his soul light. Has this been marked before?" Number 9 shook his head and said, "That's impossible. He was only born on that planet and was contaminated by the bizarre soul-light substance to warn outsiders. It was too resplendent and too glorious. Some people couldn't forget it and thus took action. They invisibly materialized and developed the old matters of that planet. It's unfathomable. We can't speculate about it to avoid a great disaster." Number 6's expression was grave as he said this. He was even more cautious than Number 9 and even suggested that Chu Feng be sent away directly and never seen again in the future. He couldn't be involved with him for fear of touching upon the deeper things behind him. Number 9 said, "There's no harm in that. No one will interfere like this." Back then, there was indeed a large, invisible hand that covered that planet and carried out all sorts of things, but it was considered a failure. That place has almost been forgotten even now. Even if there was a supreme being, I reckon he wouldn't stare at it all the time. He might not even look back. What would become of him if he didn't care about the details? Chu Feng opened his mouth and said, "Ninth Master, what are you talking about? Continue showing me that modeled picture scroll." He was very thick-skinned. He didn't care if you were afraid or taboo. Since he had started, he wanted to understand it in depth. He wanted to see what kind of oddities Earth had in the end. Could it be that he, who had once become a divine king, wasn't the number one expert of Earth since ancient times? Of course, if those creatures he saw in the images just now all originated from Earth, then he felt he had to be a bit more humble and take back those words. He would temporarily give up the position of number one expert. Number 9 laughed, but his facial expression was really a bit frightening. The main thing was that his body was too withered like a swollen layer of parchment. Aren't you afraid of being too greedy and provoking great karma? We, who live on the first mountain, don't even dare to touch it. You want to uncover the truth and understand the bloody scenes? Chu Feng said, "I'm not afraid. I was born for karma." He boasted shamelessly and showed no fear. Number 9 said, "There are some things in the past that you have to accept if you want to understand them. You can only continue walking along that broken path and advance alone in the darkness. You have to search for the path ahead and explore unceasingly. You have to continue on that broken path and chase after the dim footsteps left behind by your predecessors. You have to witness the fading truth. When the time comes, you won't be able to retreat even if you want to." It's no big deal. Chu Feng readily agreed, but he had no idea what he was really going to accept. "Old 9, you're playing with fire. Don't tell me you've included this thick-skinned brat in the scope of observation. You can't send him on his way." Number 6 reminded him with a solemn expression. He glanced at Chu Feng and felt that he couldn't be careless. Old 9 had really been too rash just now. He definitely couldn't provoke people and things from that legendary place. If by any chance you touch something unpredictable, the consequences will be very serious. Number 6 warned him in a low voice. "I know." Number 9 nodded. Chu Feng really wanted to roll his eyes at Number 6. Did he know how to talk? How could he say he was thick-skinned again? Could they still have a pleasant conversation? Number 9 looked at Chu Feng and said, "In fact, I've already given you a lot. The scene just now, the past, they're all very precious. This kind of contact, the collision of soul flames, is no less than sending an ultimate scripture into your brain." Chu Feng was disdainful. It was an ultimate scripture in just an instant. Who was he trying to fool? He curled his lips and said, "Where is there an ultimate scripture? The collision of soul flames is more of destruction. It's not like I personally experienced it, and thus had a profound understanding of life. I only had a hurried glance just now. Where was the collision? Where was the comprehension?" Then he revealed a doubtful expression and said, "However, I vaguely saw their system and their method of evolution. It's completely different from ours. Is that really the case?" Number 9 nodded and said, "Yes, this is the flames after the fusion and collision of different evolutionary civilizations. If you sense it, it will release the most resplendent heavenly melody of the great Tao, allowing you to gain endless comprehension." Chu Feng said, "Master 9, since you've said so much, then tell me a little more. How come I don't know what kind of characters have come from Earth? Moreover, there are no legends about them in the Yang realm. Or is it that I don't understand? In fact, Li Su, you guys, the martial madman, and the living being who slashed out that world-shattering sword light from the first mountain all came from the Lesserine realm? His imagination ran wild, and he randomly recognized people from the same hometown. What are you thinking about? Number 9 shot him a glance and said, some people and some things are too far in the past. The universe has almost forgotten about them, let alone the people of the present. Chu Feng said, then continue. Impart me another ultimate scripture and show me that modeled picture scroll. Number 9 hesitated for a moment and pointed with her finger. With a boom, the heaven and earth collapsed and the sea of stars collapsed. The lunar true water drowned the sea of stars and gray mist covered the ancient universe. All kinds of terrifying scenes appeared. Chu Feng's body trembled as he read it again. However, this time, the amount of information was even greater as it bombarded him. This ancient history contained too much. What he had come into contact with was still just a drop in the ocean. Even if he listened continuously and came into contact with the old matters, it was only a corner of the past. However, number 6 was moved. He felt deeply strange. How could this brat withstand the vast amount of information from number 9's divine sense? He had persisted for even longer than before. As time passed, number 9 also opened her mouth wide and felt deeply strange. Impossible. His soul light should have collapsed long ago under such an impact. In reality, Chu Feng had used the divine monarch Dao fruit from his previous life. The small gray millstone in his body slowly rotated and transferred the imprints he had absorbed into it. There was a divine monarch Dao fruit and a stone jar there. He used the stone jar as a shelter and used the divine monarch Dao fruit to absorb all kinds of information. Of course, it didn't take long. Chu Feng cried out again. He couldn't take it anymore. The space between his brows was bleeding and his soul light was fluctuating violently. He had seen many things. It was just that the speed at which those imprints and images circulated was too fast. Many of them couldn't be digested in time. You can actually persevere to this step. Number 6 looked like he had seen a ghost, even though he himself looked more like an old ghost. After that, he looked at number 9 and said in a low voice, do you think people are reincarnating, old matters are reincarnating, or the great world is reincarnating and the universe is reincarnating? Or maybe there's no real reincarnation at all? This kind of question made even Chu Feng's heart tremble. The level involved was too high. Number 9's expression was solemn as she said, I've already said that everything on that planet was because there was a supreme life form that couldn't forget it. It materialized itself, and a few invisible hands were interfering. They wanted to achieve a certain effect, but failed. This kind of words could be interpreted in many ways. It made Chu Feng's heart rise and fall with great waves. Before leaving, Chu Feng looked at the modeled ancient picture scroll that number 9 provided for the last time. This time, he was even more greatly moved in his heart. Although the speed of the picture rotation was extremely fast, the few scenes he saw at the final juncture were incomparably deep. They existed in his heart and were difficult to erase. The copper coffin stretched across the sky and drifted in the long river of time. Someone was sitting on alone, following a river and looking at the blood-stained sunset. He looked at the myriad heavens and worlds flowing with blood. He went far away by himself. His lonely back view was lonely and somewhat miserable. There was also someone lying in the coffin and buried himself. The dead universe seemed to be waiting for revival. He didn't know the starting point and the ending point, drifting on forever. There was also an empty coffin floating in the unknown mist, as if it was waiting for something. Chapter 1309. Chu Feng didn't speak for a long time. He looked back at the river of time. There were far too many unknowns buried there, waiting to be unearthed. Perhaps there were some things, some people, that weren't necessarily buried. They had already flowed along with the river of time, walking ahead. A modeled picture scroll stretched across the great fog, as heavy as a mountain, as if it would collapse the past, present, and future. Unfortunately, Chu Feng had only seen a corner of it. This ancient history was too thick and had experienced the vicissitudes of time. Too many things were engraved within, and he had only managed to catch a brief glimpse. He even suspected that this wasn't a history of evolutionary civilization, but that it involved other branches of civilization or other epochs. Beneath the floating rubble of the icy, cold universe, on the dark and turbid river of souls, within the furnace where the flames of the great void and the ancient cosmic flame burned, there was a weak voice that called out to him. Chu Feng always felt a terrifying pressure. With a single glance, he could see the flow of time and the vicissitudes of time. That broken road was far away, difficult to see when one looked back. To unravel this dense fog was no less than the creation of the heavens and earth. In the great fog, between the starry skies and the mountains and rivers dyed red with blood, Chu Feng's mind wandered. He frowned, as if he could see even more. The copper coffin floated up and down, slowly vanishing without a trace in the fog. It passed through one era after another before vanishing without a trace. Chu Feng regained his composure and looked across at the other side. Number 9 and number 6 were very calm. They didn't say anything. They indicated that Chu Feng could leave and that he shouldn't come back in the future. They had nothing to do with each other anymore. They didn't want to be involved with him and weren't willing to be entangled in karma. Chu Feng anxiously looked at them. Did they really want him to disappear as soon as possible? Why didn't they say anything special before he left? He wanted to say that he wasn't picky at all. He could just give them one of the top-ranked, wondrous techniques or ultimate weapons from the history of evolutionary civilization. Do you think I'm a spendthrift? Number 9 seemed to sense something. She also responded with a lush green gaze. Chu Feng rubbed his hands. He looked at the tattered banner on number 9's back, and his eyes emitted a faint green light. They were about to say their goodbyes. Were they really not going to take care of him at all? Number 9 ignored him and looked up at Floating Cloud. Number 6 couldn't take it anymore. What kind of riddles were he playing? He directly threatened Chu Feng, telling him to quickly disappear and not cause trouble here. If the future was filled with uncertainty, it might bring disaster to both of them. Can't you just give me an ancient scripture? Chu Feng's skin was extremely thick. Before leaving, he couldn't help but ask for it himself. But unfortunately, he was rejected. He felt helpless in his heart. This was the first mountain, and it was able to pierce through the forbidden ground. The scriptures here must be supreme, and there must be an ultimate breathing technique. He really wanted to comprehend it. Chu Feng said, "I'm just using it as a reference, not copying it. Disappear immediately," Number 6 said with a dark face. Then he began to stare at Chu Feng's body, which was full of life force. Number 6 had clearly told him that the supreme techniques of the first mountain could only be passed on to the chosen ones and kept for their own disciples. They could not be passed on to outsiders. This was a very important matter. For example, back in the day, he had created Li Su. How terrifying was he? His might shook the world, and he dared to attack anyone he didn't like. He even burned down half of a forbidden land. If this kind of scripture fell into the hands of evil, how terrifying would the damage be? Chu Feng puffed out his chest and raised his head. His face was full of righteousness as he said, righteously, "Do I look like evil to you with my thick eyebrows and big eyes?" Firm and unyielding, boundless righteousness rumbling, heaven and earth resonating. Then he saw a large hand slam down and suppress him. He couldn't even spit out a single word as he ate a mouthful of soil. Only when number 9 and number 6 turned around and were about to return to the depths of the first mountain could he move. With a swoosh, Chu Feng broke free from the soil layer. He took a step back and shouted from behind, "Fine, I don't want those. I only want the method of elimination." "How about it?" Chu Feng spoke in a negotiating tone. "The method of elimination?" Number 9 revealed an expression of surprise and turned to look at him. Chu Feng said, "Yes, it's the method in that ancient history. Those people's cultivation method doesn't use pollen, but another system. I think it's gaudy, but perhaps it can be used to scare people. This can also be considered reusing a discarded method. When they heard this, both number 9 and number 6 faces trembled and turned as black as the bottom of a pot. Their expressions were extremely unfriendly as they stared at him. Chu Feng really wanted to say, "What now? Did I say something wrong again? Wasn't my hometown in decline and eliminated? Only the heavens know when that period of glory belonged to. Since it's already become the smoke of history, if you know, then teach me those methods. I'll reminisce and pay homage. Perhaps it can also be considered archaeology. I'll see how the people of that time cultivated and how backward they were." It would have been better if he hadn't explained. Now that he said this, number 9's large palm swung toward him. If it landed, Chu Feng would probably be in deep trouble. At the crucial moment, number 6 hugged his arm and said, "Old 9, calm down. You said it yourself. Don't get involved in karma, and don't get entangled in a great disaster. Calm down. How could that kind of method be eliminated? Do you know the origin? Do you know who cultivated it? You." Number 9 stretched out her large palm and really wanted to slap it. "I don't know. That's why I'm asking. Master 9, you don't even tell me in detail about those methods buried in history. How would I know? Why don't you teach me?" Chu Feng had a very humble look as he humbly asked for guidance. Number 9 saw that he was obviously unrepentant and was only saying nice words. She wanted to give him another slap and said, "You want to deceive that kind of method? Forget it, I don't want it. In the future, when I become the ultimate evolved being, I'll follow the laws of heaven and earth. Every word and action of mine will be the law. I'll let all living beings in the world recite my name, cultivate my system, pass on my true words, and comprehend my wonderful methods." Seeing his smug appearance, number 6 and number 9 crossed their large hands and almost slapped him. But in the end, they restrained themselves. Parting is truly sad. After this departure, I don't know when we can meet again. Chu Feng sighed. However, such mushy words were a bit too obvious. Before I leave, I still have some questions to ask. He wanted to find out more about the situation. However, number 6 directly blocked the way and said, "No comment." Chu Feng was shameless and didn't know when to stop. He dawdled and asked about the situation of the Forbidden Lands. Had they really been completely destroyed? If that was the case, then the first mountain was too terrifying. Who in the world could match them? Perhaps the creatures playing games behind the reincarnation path were nothing more than this, right? Additionally, he also wanted to ask why that copper coffin was faintly discernible in that modeled painting he had just seen. From beginning to end, the entire history of evolution couldn't avoid it. Number 6 and number 9 originally didn't want to answer these questions, but when Chu Feng grabbed a handful of reincarnation earth and offered it to them at the first mountain, the two of them were dumbfounded and stopped in their tracks. Chu Feng took out this kind of earth out of gratitude from the bottom of his heart. Although he was smiling mischievously from time to time, this couldn't conceal his true intentions. Additionally, he also wanted to use this to verify just what level this reincarnation earth was at, what use it had, and whether he could obtain some answers from number 9. Through number 9 and number 6 shocked expressions, Chu Feng realized that this thing was too abnormal. Even the number 9 creature had such a reaction, so it was definitely extraordinary. From this, he deduced one step further that he had underestimated this so-called reincarnation path. It was unfathomably deep. Number 9's expression was gloomy and number 6's eyes were blazing. He wanted to snatch it away several times, but in the end, he restrained himself. "What exactly are you?" Number 6 asked. "I'm a human." Chu Feng puffed out his chest and replied, "You are entangled with too much karma. It's too heavy and too great. We will cut off our connection with you from now on. There will be no more interactions. You should leave." In the end, number 6 and number 9 didn't even accept a single grain of earth. They were completely rejected and were about to leave. Chu Feng offered them in every possible way, saying that he was grateful, but the two of them refused. Moreover, they emitted a hazy radiance that covered this place, preventing anyone from sensing them. "Hurry up and leave," number 6 urged with a dark expression. Chu Feng was at his wit's end. This was reincarnation Earth, and he hadn't even taken out the stone jar. If he did, Wouldn't it involve an even deeper and more terrifying source? In reality, he really didn't dare to take out the 3 seeds and jar. These were the starting point of his path of evolution, as well as the foundation. Ninth Master, seeing how pious I am and how close I am to the first mountain, can't you dispel my doubts? Chu Feng was very direct. It was fine if he didn't accept this earth, but he had to help answer some questions. Number 9 gave him a deep look and finally gave a response. She started from the Forbidden Land and finally talked about the copper coffin. Several forbidden lands had indeed been pierced through by sword chi and had become large holes. He reckoned that the losses were disastrous, and even if they weren't completely wiped out, they were almost there. However, this was only on the surface. It was like a ringed skin, and there was a deeper domain where it had taken root. Behind the Forbidden Lands are connected to other mysterious regions. What did that mean? Chu Feng revealed a shocked expression. Just where was it connected to? A super terrifying great world. The place where the ancestor of the supreme powerhouse rose to power and the true source of darkness, and other places. The places that Number 9 casually mentioned all had gargantuan origins. This shocked Chu Feng so much that he became absent-minded. According to Number 9, the so-called Great World might be even higher and more powerful than the Yang realm. In the end, he even pointed to the sky. Then he said that the ancestor of the supreme powerhouse rose to power, and that he himself could be revered as supreme in the Yang realm. His ancestor seemed to have even more great origins. That kind of place was simply unimaginable. Chapter 1310. Buried here is a piece of glory, a legend, a clue, and the greatest historical case in their eyes. They want to unravel it. Of course, they also want to act as an outpost and charge through here to cut off their retreat. When he heard this, Chu Feng was a bit stupefied. Whose retreat? Was it the retreat of the master of the sword radiance that had penetrated the past and present? The region behind us is too terrifying. It's to the extent that some people will come down from there in the future. Number 9 pointed towards the sky. This meant that the master of the heavenly sword, Qi, still had enemies. Chu Feng sucked in a breath of cold air and deeply felt that the path of cultivation was boundless. The world ahead was too terrifying, and he really needed to rise up in all aspects. It was because the road ahead was too long. The world seemed to have suddenly become vast and boundless, full of powerful creatures. You're saying that the place behind the Forbidden Land is extremely terrifying, and there will be creatures coming from those paths and abysses in the future? Yes. Number 9 nodded. Moreover, for example, the 4th Tribulation Sparrow race actually displayed terrifying moves known as one sword slaying 10,000 immortals and borrowing a great era from the heavens. This was definitely not something an ordinary person could create. It was too terrifying. It was to the extent where Number 9 suspected that these weren't created by the 4th Tribulation Sparrow race, but came from other great realms. Even though the path from the depths of the Forbidden Land to the outside world was arduous and difficult to cross, there would still be creatures that would descend one day. They would definitely be even more terrifying and powerful. The creatures that reappeared might even be a few orders of magnitude higher in cultivation level. They were unrivaled, and this was the greatest worry in Number 9's heart. That was because, according to the current situation, some heaven and earth and some worlds had opened up new paths. The paths that had previously been cut off were now going to reconnect once again. 10,000 heavens and 10,000 worlds, 100 barges vying for the current, millions and millions of races vying for hegemony, the heaven and earth in chaos, using the heaven and earth furnace to refine true gold. Just thinking about it makes me excited. Who will be the true overlord? We will compete together on the greatest stage of the evolutionary path. Who will rise up and who will be able to look down on the last? It truly makes one's heart surge. Chu Feng was incredibly excited and impassioned. In the end, Number 6's face became as gloomy as water, as if a torrential rain was about to pour down. He couldn't help but want to give him another slap. Fortunately, he was pulled back by number 9, and that slap didn't land. What do you know? Talk about hegemony. Back then, you had no idea how much effort it took to sever these passageways. Just what kind of cultivators were needed. He had to reign supreme over the world and swallow the ages. Where else could he find such a person now? If some kind of creature really does descend, not to mention the experts from that side, even the young generation of a certain clan might. In short, if a creature really does descend, it will be a great disaster. Blood will dye the starry river red. Number 9 sighed, feeling a little anxious. Originally, he didn't want to think about these things, nor did he want to look forward to them. It was because it was too stifling, truly making one feel terrified, as well as a bit of despair. When I'm successful in my cultivation in the future, I'll take a fishing net to the abyssal path and roast them all to eat. Chu Feng boasted shamelessly. Number 6 said, disappear as far as you can. I'm not done yet. I still have too many questions. By the way, you mentioned the bronze coffin just now. Why is it always there? Who is buried inside? Chu Feng didn't retreat. Moreover, he was full of puzzlement and questions. He was still humbly asking for guidance. He could see that mottled ancient painting. Even though his heart almost collapsed from the impact and his soul light was still unstable, he still felt a bit of pain. However, he had indeed seen a corner of the truth. He saw some fog and urgently wanted to understand it. It's not burial, but crossing. Number 9 and number 6 complexions weren't very good. They seemed to be very sensitive to the word burial and corrected him solemnly. It's already been buried in the coffin. Don't you want the corpse to rest in peace? Chu Feng curled his lips and muttered in a low voice. I already said, it's not death, not burial, but crossing. Number 6's old face was very dry, but at this moment, veins appeared. He grabbed Chu Feng's collar and almost lifted him up. Crossing, how do I cross? Chu Feng had doubts in his heart, but he wasn't afraid at all. He minded his own business and pondered. He truly felt that these two wouldn't harm him. If they really wanted to exterminate him, they didn't have to do this. Cross. Number 9 said in a low voice. Cross? Chu Feng had a puzzled expression. Even his pupils were interweaving with question marks. He was a bit stupefied. How was he supposed to guess? He couldn't help but mutter to himself. At that level, you still have to cross? Cross the heavenly tribulation, the world's most powerful tribulation? That's not right either. Do I have to cross the mortal world, cross the eternal void, and cross the eternity of the universe? Or do I have to cross reincarnation, cross the sea of suffering, and transcend my true self? He let his imagination run wild and spoke carelessly, but it made number 9 reveal a strange expression. He felt that this brat really had some ideas and wasn't just being thick-skinned and asking for it. Wait a moment, I saw another bronze coffin. There was a person sitting on it alone. He was very lonely, and only his back was left. When Chu Feng mentioned this coffin, he also wanted to know what was going on. He wanted to connect the dots and deduce it. Number 9 sighed and nodded there, but he immediately widened his eyes and wished he could beat this brat to death. Why do I feel like he's drifting? Sitting on a bronze coffin. Isn't this a bit too willful? Then he knew the consequences. He was beaten into the earth by number 6 and number 9, and only came up after a long time. He no longer dared to speak carelessly, becoming serious. In reality, he wanted to ease the atmosphere. It was because the true feeling he felt when he saw that figure was loneliness and desolation. It was extremely stifling. Could it be that this person is also transcending? Chu Feng asked seriously. Yes, he is also transcending. Number 9 nodded. Chu Feng thought carefully. That person was sitting on the bronze coffin, following the river down, passing one realm after another, watching the blood-dyed sunset, watching the blood of the myriad heavens and realms drift away in the river of time. This was also transcending? Chu Feng's imagination ran wild. Then, he thought of that empty coffin. Who was this prepared for? Why was there an empty one? Moreover, the 3 coffins used to be one. It said that the Tao begets 1, 1 begets 2, and 3 begets all things. This bronze coffin also begets 1, 2, and 3 coffins. In other words, you, me, him, and all things are buried here? After saying this, Chu Feng hurriedly retreated, afraid of provoking number 9 and number 6 again. This bronze coffin has the word 3 in its name, number 9 replied. Chu Feng was suspicious. What kind of secret was there? There was still an empty coffin left, so where was it now? He said, if there's a chance in the future, I'll definitely fish it out. I want to see what secrets it has. You don't need to think about it. It definitely has nothing to do with you. You won't see the last coffin, number 6 said. Then, he became impatient, wishing that Chu Feng could disappear immediately. 9th Master, 6th Master, I still have various questions. Help me answer them all at once. Besides, you didn't answer the question just now. Chu Feng was unwilling to leave. These two were too secretive with him, unwilling to reveal secrets. It was as if 100 claws were scratching at his heart. He really wanted to suppress these two old men. Who was in the bronze coffin? Chu Feng asked. You said it yourself. It's you, me, and all things. Number 9 chuckled. How strong is the martial madman? Chu Feng asked. This question was too sudden, leaving number 9 and number 6 dumbfounded. They were just talking about the bronze coffin and the forbidden land. Why did they suddenly ask about the martial madman? This was all because Chu Feng could see that if he couldn't get the scriptures, he wouldn't be able to ask about the most important secrets. Instead of that, he might as well be more realistic and ask about some of the more serious problems of the current world. He would encounter the martial madman's people sooner or later, and they were destined to fight. He's very strong. Never underestimate that little madman. He has talent and perseverance. This time, he only used a weapon and not his real body. The Forbidden Land even sent out the physical body of a powerhouse. You can imagine how strong that madman's realm will be once he comes out, number 9 said solemnly. He had fought with the weapon controlled by the martial madman's spirit before, so he knew how powerful the martial madman's real body would be once he came out. At the same time, in a certain area of the northernmost land, it was as if a bronze cauldron was burning and refining a living being. In the mist, a pair of huge eyes opened and closed. It was so terrifying that it felt like the world was about to collapse. In the end, the pair of eyes closed again and went silent. The martial madman did not come out. The Patriarch's weapon is damaged. Is the first mountain really that powerful? It's fine. When the Patriarch's real body comes out, his realm will definitely be 1 or 2 levels higher. His disciples were very confident. However, there were also some who were worried. They had already received news that the heavenly sword Qi had pierced through several forbidden lands. If the one-legged bronze spear had not retreated in advance, this place would have been affected as well. That sword Qi doesn't belong to the first mountain. What's done is done, and it won't appear again. Besides, do you really think my master won't reach that point? The martial madman's eldest disciple said confidently. He seemed to know something. Don't worry. At this moment, the martial madman's voice came from the depths of the mist. It was actually very calm, without a trace of anger. However, it also made people feel as if the heavens were about to explode. There was a majestic blood Qi undulating in that place. It was too terrifying. Master, can that sword be surpassed? The martial madman's youngest disciple, a white-haired beauty, asked. When I was young, my master had once pursued that realm. The martial madman said. When they heard this, everyone was stunned. Their patriarch, their master, the martial madman actually mentioned his master for the first time. Could it be that he was still alive? In an instant, everyone in the area was stunned. Then, they felt their blood rushing and roaring in their bodies, causing them to tremble uncontrollably. What about you, master? We're still on our way, the martial madman replied. He was recovering. Number 9 and number 6 couldn't stand Chu Feng anymore after he was banished. They had never seen such a shameless person, so they threw him out in the end. Hey, Master 9, you haven't answered my questions yet. I still have many questions to ask. Chu Feng waved his hand outside the first mountain, reluctant to part. When number 9 and number 6 saw that he didn't disappear, They disappeared on their own and no longer paid attention to him. In the distance, the evolvers from all sides were speechless. Some came from major clans in the world of the living, some came from the 3 battlefields, and some came from the major newspapers. Too many people had come to the first mountain to inquire about the news, but they didn't know what to say after seeing this scene. Of course, there were also many who had strange expressions. After all, not long ago, Number 9 had personally said that she didn't teach Chu Feng anything and that the first mountain wasn't suitable for him. Was there a hidden meaning behind this, or was it revealing something? Many people were letting their imaginations run wild. After Chu Feng walked out, he looked at the crowd. This was not the time for stage fright. He was very domineering and forceful as he said, "Disperse. My first mountain doesn't like to be surrounded by people." Then, he made it clear that he had officially left the mountain. Li Su is my elder brother. Back in the day, he would beat up anyone he didn't like. If anyone showed off in a forbidden zone, he would set them on fire. From now on, I'm going to carry forward the style of the first mountain. I'm going to kill everyone in the world. This was really boasting shamelessly. Chu Feng was completely using the tiger's skin as a flag. Otherwise, he would be in danger. Number 9 had dispelled the halo around him, and the words he had said earlier might have a disastrous effect on him. Besides, he didn't plan to leave immediately. Instead, he calmly told Qi Rong that he wanted to go to the 3 battlefields and the secret realm to harvest the fortunes. At this time, he really wasn't willing to just run away. In any case, he had used the tiger's skin again. He wanted to quickly use this last chance to collect what belonged to him. Otherwise, as time passed, he might not have another chance in the future. Rumble. A golden rainbow filled the sky and silver light poured down in torrents. Chu Feng returned to the 3 battlefields with crowd. He wanted to secretly contact some of his old friends, but he discovered that none of them were suitable. He didn't have much of an opportunity. However, he had previously made an agreement that he hoped those people would enter the secret realm. In the end, he managed to contact Fairy Qingyin through Heavenly Venerable Yushang, and they met in secret. I'll ask you again, what do you think? In Heavenly Venerable Yushang's tent, Chu Feng solemnly asked Fairy Qingyin. He wanted to make one last effort. If the other party didn't admit that she was the little Taoist's mother, then they would part ways in this lifetime. He would completely give up. He had already done what needed to be done. He didn't want these things to become a hindrance on the path of evolution. Chu Feng came to Fairy Qingyin's side and looked at her, waiting for her reply. Qingyin was a peerless beauty. She wore a snow-white robe, and her fine black hair draped over her shoulders. Her face was lustrous, and her eyes were deep. She was otherworldly and could be considered a peerless beauty. But now, she was very calm and indifferent as she looked indifferently at Chu Feng. Chu Feng was enraged. He thought of the little Taoist, thought of Qin Luoyin from the past, and then looked at the indifferent and aloof Qingyin. He grabbed Fairy Qingyin's snow-white neck and said, "Wake up." Chapter 13:11. Fairy Qingyin's jade-like, snow-white neck was covered in goosebumps. She was actually being hugged by the neck and was in intimate contact with someone. The moment she turned back, her fair forehead, straight nose, and bright red lips were about to touch Chu Feng's face. A warm, moist breeze brushed against her face. Qin Luoyin's pupils constricted as a silver rune appeared on her body. Her slender body tensed up as her fine black hair danced in the wind. Her entire being was emitting killing intent as she turned from an otherworldly being into a demonic immortal in a chaotic world. However, before she could say anything, Chu Feng wrapped his arms around her neck that was as white as a swan's and spoke first. "You want to have a falling out with me? So heartless. Do you really not want the child anymore? It's also your bloodline, your child, not mine alone." Fairy Qingyin's body was snow white and her skin was gushing with divine radiance. She was about to retaliate, but her movements became sluggish after hearing these words. Her gaze was like 2 divine swords that swept over, causing Chu Feng to feel a stab of pain. She naturally felt that the other party was doing this on purpose. Was he trying to gain the upper hand by a show of strength? The light in her eyes became increasingly intimidating. However, Chu Feng remained unmoved. He wrapped his right arm around her neck and pressed his head against the other party's fair and translucent forehead. We've been husband and wife for so long. What's the fuss? Let go. Fairy Qingyin berated with killing intent. This wasn't a simple threat. She was really going to take action. Chu Feng sighed. He had no intention of going into a long explanation because he had already said everything he needed to say last time. Today was the last time. If Qin Luoyin's reincarnation was the same as before and hadn't changed, he would give up completely and say nothing more. His eyes shone brightly as he said in a deep voice, I'll ask you one last time. Are you going to abandon everything in the serene realm? Are you going to leave me in that child? Fairy Qingyin's hair fluttered in the wind, sparkling and resplendent. Her beautiful eyes were like rainbows, shooting out beams of light that caused others to feel fear. Her flawless face was filled with coldness, unmoved. She was still cold and resolute as she said, I'll say it one more time. Let go. This is your final decision? Chu Feng was annoyed. I said everything I need to say last time. Qin Luoyin muttered coldly. Then, she suddenly raised her head and distanced herself from Chu Feng's face. Her expression became even more resolute. Chu Feng's face was ashen, and his killing intent surged. He thought of what Qingyin had said last time. Having someone you liked was a legend among legends in prehistoric times, and it was impossible for her and Chu Feng to be together. The Qingyin before him was just like the last time, very indifferent and very resolute. Her attitude and words had already made it clear that she would not change her mind. I'll get rid of that person sooner or later. Chu Feng said coldly. Fairy Qingshi said calmly, you won't have that chance. You'd better leave this place as soon as possible. I know you have nothing to do with the first mountain. Obviously, she had already heard about what had happened at the first mountain. Moreover, she was the reincarnation of the ancient dream past goddess from prehistoric times and understood the ins and outs of the first mountain. That was why she had determined that Chu Feng was not a disciple of the first mountain. In reality, the outside world also suspected that the conversation between number 9 and number 6 had disintegrated many of the halos on Chu Feng's body. In this life, I'm no longer Qin Luoyin. I'm Qingyin. The lesser underworld is but a very short part of my life. The sea has turned to dust, and the past is like smoke. I wish you a smooth journey. Go. Fairy Qingyin's body glowed. Her body left her body and hovered in the middle of the golden tent. Without a doubt, she had awakened some divine abilities from prehistoric times in this life. She would go incomparably far on the path of evolution. She wanted to transcend and become an ultimate evolver. The current her was already very powerful. If that child can appear again, and if he's in trouble, you can find me. I'll go and save him. This was her final promise. After hearing these words, Chu Feng no longer had any physical contact with her. He directly let go of her and stood in the middle of the tent. He recovered his cold demeanor and said, There's no need. If I really find him one day, I can take care of myself and protect him for the rest of his life. No one will be able to touch him. Fairy Qingyin said, Go. If people find out that you're not directly related to the first mountain, you'll be in great danger. You won't be able to walk out of this battlefield. Now, she and Chu Feng were only a foot apart. It was as though they were separated by the ends of the earth and extremely far. I wasn't able to reach this step because of my relationship with anyone. I can rise to power on my own and break all kinds of myths. Chu Feng turned around and left. He had said all that he needed to say. For the sake of the little Taoist and the friendship of the lesser underworld, he had already made his last effort and didn't want to continue. Chu Feng walked out of the tent. Yushang appeared and said with a sigh, It's very complicated, but are you going to give up just like that? Yes. Chu Feng nodded. But in the end, he stopped and said, She's no longer the person I want to see. Heavenly Venerable Yushang sighed. He didn't have any suggestions on this matter and wouldn't give any opinions. However, he stopped Chu Feng and asked him to wait for a moment and not leave. At this time, Fairy Qingyin walked past and drifted away. You're not going to ask me to stay just like that. Yushang spoke again. He was an experienced person and was afraid that Chu Feng would leave behind regrets. Chu Feng shook his head and said, "There's no need now. In the end, I'm still not strong enough. One day, when I can suppress a legend among legends with a raise of my hand, what can't be reversed? If I'm strong enough, I can naturally awaken her in the lesser underworld and make her reappear. Forget it. Let's just walk our own paths. It's also good to let go like this. My Tao heart is becoming more and more firm. This time, I'll ride the wind and break the waves, the Kuan Peng spreading its wings to break the universe." Then, he revealed a puzzled expression and asked Heavenly Venerable Yushang why he was asked to stay. "I want to give you an artifact." Yushang made such a decision after thinking for a long time. This was a thought he had had in the past. He didn't have much time left and was prepared to give that ancient artifact to Chowda. Chu Feng revealed a surprised expression. Seeing him so serious, what was that artifact? However, he immediately understood the old man's mentality. He felt that he couldn't make it anymore and his life was about to dry up. This was the artifact he entrusted to Chu Feng before he died. Chu Feng said, "Senior, you'll be fine. I'll find rare medicines that can extend your lifespan for you." He knew that ordinary medicinal herbs were ineffective for Yushang. He needed rare and precious materials. "It's useless. I understand my own situation. Perhaps I only have 1 or 2 months before I return to ashes, dust to dust." He sighed. At this time, his hair was white, his face was full of wrinkles, and his eyes were muddy without luster. Although he was a heavenly venerable, his life was full of ups and downs. His 3 children died early, and his only grandson also died. And these few descendants all had astonishing talent. For example, they had charged into the top 3 rankings of the Yang realm's divine kings. Unfortunately, they all died young. Although Heavenly Venerable Yushang didn't have any evidence, his intuition told him that his daughter and his eldest son were killed by someone. This was the pain of his life. His entire life was gloomy and full of suffering. There was no happiness or light to speak of. As a heavenly venerable, he actually didn't have a single heir. He didn't leave behind any descendants. The few disciples he had were also dismissed by him for fear of accidents. But after that, he also heard grievous news. Some of his disciples also died and were erased. All of this was because someone coveted an ancient artifact in Heavenly Venerable Yushang's family and wanted to take it for himself. At the same time, he didn't want to make it public and let the whole world know. When Yushang talked to Chu Feng, he was secretly transmitting his voice. Even so, he was still a little worried. He was afraid that he would harm Chu Feng. The only thing that made him slightly at ease was that the first mountain had just slashed out a sky-piercing sword chi and pierced through a few forbidden lands. It was precisely the time to intimidate the world. Even if someone had locked onto him in the dark, he reckoned that they might have temporarily left now. Heavenly Venerable Yushang had a feeling that his entire body seemed to have become much more relaxed. It was as if an invisible mountain in the dark had been moved away from his body. When he said these things, Chu Feng was deeply shocked. Some terrifying force had always been coveting the artifact of Heavenly Venerable Yushang's family, and had even been monitoring him all these years. At the same time, Chu Feng was also puzzled. Instead of that, they should just directly make a ruthless move and capture Heavenly Venerable Yushang. Yushang said, "They don't dare because my ancestor has set up a restriction in the depths of my soul light. There's already no way to undo it. If there's the slightest accident, the clue will disappear from my soul, and I'll never be able to find that artifact again." Chu Feng became more and more apprehensive. Just what kind of artifact was it that actually required such a large force? It's an artifact that has only appeared in legends and is believed to be impossible to exist. It once suppressed the heavens with a single artifact. Even though it has long been forgotten by people in many eras, and even in this era, once it appears, it will still illuminate the heavens and myriad realms. At this point, Heavenly Venerable Yushang's eyes flickered with astonishing brilliance. All of his sufferings, all of his setbacks, and the gloominess of his life dispersed at this moment. It was as if he had obtained some vitality and some vitality. Chu Feng was greatly shocked. Just what kind of artifact was that? No wonder people coveted it. If it really was so extraordinary, even old monsters that had been in slumber for who knew how many eras would awaken and rush out of their coffins. Senior, I can't accept this kind of thing. Just leave it. I'll find a great medicine for you and let you live for another 10,000 years. Yushang was bitter. He thought of his heaven-warping eldest son. Then he thought of the divine king's daughter that swept through the world. And then he thought of his only bloodline, that grandson. All of them had passed away, and their deaths were unclear. He felt that his life should have ended a long time ago. There was no happiness to speak of, and his entire life was spent in pain. He chewed on sorrow amidst torment and loneliness, sinking into the darkness. If I don't give it to you, I'll really have to bring the final clue of that artifact into the coffin. This object can't be lost. Some people say that it's even more important than most of the Yang realm. Heavenly Venerable Yushang sighed. In the end, Chu Feng no longer refused. However, he still wanted to arouse the old man's will to live. He couldn't just pass away in meditation like this and die silently like this. Senior, just who was the one that harmed your clan? Don't you want to take revenge for your children? Chu Feng asked. Yushang shook his head. He felt dejected and defeated as he said, I can't see the slightest bit of hope. Even if I cultivate for 1,000 lifetimes, I still won't be their opponent. I won't be able to take revenge. Chu Feng frowned and said, Just who is it? Could it be that they are even more formidable than the martial madman? Chapter 13:12. It was obvious that Yushang's ancestor had a great background. This clan used to be glorious, but their inheritance declined later on. Many people had their eyes on the secret weapon that was guarded and hidden within the clan. At this moment, Chu Feng still did not know what it was, nor did he know who his enemy was. In fact, he wanted to know more about his enemy. What kind of background did he have? How terrifying was he? Was he stronger than the martial madman? According to the known information, this was definitely a legend among legends. He was a monster from prehistoric times who was on par with Li Su. Otherwise, how could he be like this? However, Yushang did not say much. No matter how many times Chu Feng asked, he did not tell him who that person was. I am worried that if I mention that clan, the existence in the underworld will sense it, and I will implicate you. Yushang's voice was weak. His hair was white, and his eyes were dim and turbid. His current state made Chu Feng's heart ache. His life was simply too miserable. His daughter, eldest son, and a few other relatives had all been killed. Now, he was alone with no one to rely on. He was so haggard, melancholic, and miserable. At the same time, Chu Feng was also very apprehensive. Just what level of enemy was this? Just what kind of terrifying creature was it that it could sense just by saying its name? Yushang urged him to be on high alert and prepare to collect a secret map. Chu Feng was startled. There is a need to muster so many people just to collect a map? This must be that secret weapon. This is a spiritual imprint passed down in the past. It hides clues to that secret weapon. Yushang's expression was incomparably solemn as he asked Chu Feng to accept it with his mind. This matter was of great importance because his ancestor's spiritual imprint was engraved in his mind. Outsiders could not explore it, and if they tried to forcefully take it, his sea of consciousness would collapse. Chu Feng pondered. If Yushang passed down this imprint, he reckoned that the last of his spiritual sustenance would be gone and his life would come to an end. Chu Feng refused again and told Elder Yushang to keep it for himself. One day, he would be able to see the light of day and take revenge. Since this was a secret artifact that made even unmatched experts' eyes red, coveting it from the ancient times until now, if there was a day when Yushang dug up this secret artifact, he might be able to use it to suppress and kill a great enemy. You don't have to worry about me. This is a rare opportunity. The reason why I gave it to you is that this spiritual imprint doesn't repel you. Instead, it feels somewhat close to you. In all these years, apart from those who have the blood of my race flowing through their veins, this kind of thing rarely happens. Yushang actually said these words. Moreover, he understood Chu Feng's intentions. He was telling him that he would not die, and that he had to work hard to survive until the day the light of dawn appeared. Chu Feng sighed lightly and felt sad for him. At the same time, he was also very confused. Why didn't the spiritual imprint on Yu Shang's ancestor reject him? Actually, Yu Shang had his doubts as well. In the end, he thought of a legendary possibility. After a moment of hesitation, he said, "Perhaps someone from your clan had some dealings with our clan in the past and received the baptism of our clan's true blood." This left Chu Feng stunned and deeply puzzled. Yu Shang explained that their clan was extremely unordinary. Even they themselves felt mysterious. It was rumored that their clan would occasionally produce people with extremely special bloodlines. Their blood would mysteriously be activated into a different state, turning into an unmatched great medicine that could baptize all creatures. When he heard this, Chu Feng was deeply shocked. What kind of constitution was this? What kind of true blood was this? It could actually be like this. It was too shocking. This type of blood was extremely special and legendary. It was also extremely mysterious, to the extent where it could even be said that after baptizing another's flesh, it could promote a mutation and then be contaminated with a bit of this blood's characteristics. When Chu Feng heard this, he was a bit stupefied. There was actually such a miraculous blood in this world. It was too mysterious, making one feel that it was inconceivable. He didn't even need to think about it to know that Yu Shang's clan's ancestor was even more mysterious and powerful than what he had imagined. Otherwise, why would the blood of the occasional clansman be like this? Yu Shang sighed. In reality, even he was deeply suspicious when he heard this rumor. He felt that it was unimaginable, feeling that it was a bit abnormal and powerful. Even the clansmen themselves felt that it was a little like an unimaginable and bizarre legend. But this was the truth. Their clan had records, and some evidence was left behind. Therefore, he was suspecting that Chu Feng's ancestor had friendly relations with his clan and had received baptism, causing Chu Feng's clan to be contaminated with a certain characteristic that made that spiritual imprint feel intimate. This shouldn't be possible. Chu Feng shook his head because he wasn't someone from the Yang realm at all. He shouldn't have any dealings with Yu Shang's clan. He didn't avoid it and didn't conceal it. He directly said that he came from the Little Yin realm because he didn't hide it from Elder Yu Shang when he conversed with Qing Yin. And recently, Yu Shang had always been protecting him and ensuring his safety. He had nothing to hide. Yu Shang had long since calmed down apart from his earlier shock. Which evolver didn't have their own secrets, especially those who could become great saints. They were naturally extraordinary. Yu Shang was a celestial being from the Yang realm. His ancestor was even more mysterious, so he naturally knew many secrets. He wasn't unfamiliar with the various sayings of reincarnation. Perhaps your ancestor was someone from the Yang realm? Yu Shang said. Chu Feng shook his head. This wasn't very likely. There was a saying that the creatures in the Little Yin realm were the remains buried in the Yang realm and were resurrected. Some creatures from the Yang realm were once very arrogant and said that the Little Yin realm was a mass grave left behind by the Yang realm in the past. Some corpses were intelligent and gradually revived, giving birth to some clans. This kind of thing naturally made the people of the Little Yin realm feel even more humiliated. At this moment, Chu Feng's heart stirred and some thoughts suddenly sprang up in his mind. Senior, are you sure that you're the only one left in your clan? Are there any blood relatives or descendants who have entered the Little Yin realm? When he said this, his heart jumped because he thought of some possibilities that might give hope to Yu Shang, who didn't have much life left. No, I'm the only one left. Everyone else is dead. They either died accidentally or inexplicably, just like my daughter and eldest son. Yu Shang's heart ached. An incomparably glorious clan with a great background was actually going to be completely annihilated today. Their bloodline inheritance was severed and there were no descendants left. Senior, perhaps you don't know. What if there was a descendant who left a bloodline outside, and I happened to meet him? I was stained with his true blood. At this time, Yushang hesitated because he thought of some things and heard some very cruel truths. He also suspected that there were descendants wandering outside. My only grandson, according to reports, might have a posthumous child. When Yushang mentioned this matter, turbid old tears almost flowed down his face. He was incomparably sad. Back then, he went to search and pursue, but he was obstructed by a hostile clan. His grandson's Dao companion was kidnapped, and the unborn posthumous child disappeared along with her. But later, Yushang heard that the posthumous child had grown up and had descendants who were raised scattered. However, the final outcome was extremely miserable. That enemy not only coveted their clan's secret artifact, but also wanted to study the rare true blood that occasionally appeared within their clan. They were subjected to all types of experiments. It was extremely cruel and lamentable. I heard that they all died in the end. Yushang's old eyes were turbid and his heart felt suffocated. He was powerless to reverse the situation and couldn't change anything. Everything was because the enemy and the enemy's clan were too powerful. Chu Feng didn't have the heart to tear open the old man's scars, but because of certain reasons, he still wanted to ask what those scattered descendants experienced. It was because he felt that there was a possibility that might be true. For example, they used their fresh flesh to nourish the evil blood left behind by the great evil spirits, causing their bodies to rot and turn into a pool of blood. For example, because they knew that the occasionally produced true blood of my clan was special, they stimulated its body and even planted a mother gold seed in order to nurture an extraordinary mother gold. Stop! When Chu Feng heard this, he was shocked. It finally matched up. His suspicions had come true. Senior, you still have descendants. I have seen them, Chu Feng said excitedly, wanting to tell Yushang the truth. Yao Yao's grandfather was like this in the lesser Yin realm and on Earth. There was a mother gold growing in his body. This was a seed planted by someone back then. The most important thing was that Yao Yao's grandfather came from the Yang realm and fled to the lesser Yin realm. The old man Yushang was too pitiful, lonely, and miserable. If he knew that there were descendants in the lesser Yin realm and that their clan's bloodline hadn't been severed, he would certainly be incomparably excited and happy. But in a split second, when he thought of Yao Yao's end, Chu Feng became somewhat silent. He was extremely nervous, anxious, and pained. That was because the last time he and Yao Yao parted ways was in the abyss. She sank and never came back up. On that day, Chu Feng's physical body disintegrated, leaving behind only a remnant of his soul and blood. Yao Yao carried a stone jar out from the depths of the dark abyss while she herself sank. Old Taiwu bastard. When he thought of this, Chu Feng's heart was filled with hatred and pain. Back then, Taiwu Tianzuan's Dao body descended into the lesser Yin realm and caused all of this. Was Yao Yao still there? Could she still survive? At the same time, Chu Feng also understood why the imprint in Yushang's body felt so close to him. It was because he had been stained with Yao Yao's blood. Back then, when Yao Yao sent him out of the abyss, she coughed up blood continuously, staining his soul light and blood. It seemed that Yao Yao had given birth to that kind of extremely special blood. It was supreme blood. If she came to the Yang realm and grew up, how powerful would she be? Chu Feng also understood why Yao Yao was called the number one under the starry skies in the ancient lesser Yin realm. This wasn't without reason. She was truly blessed by the heavens. She was in an incomplete world with imperfect laws, but she could fight against Taiwu and kill evil people in the Yang realm. There was a reason why she could be so heaven-defying. You said I have descendants. Where are they? Yushang was trembling, and his lips were trembling. His greatest regret in this life was that he couldn't protect his daughter, eldest son, and only grandson. His descendants were all blessed by the heavens, but they were all dead. They were harmed and made him unhappy for the rest of his life. He lived in self-blame and torment. There was no light in the sky of his life, and the whole world was gray. His heart was filled with grief. How could he not be excited after hearing this news? Chu Feng hesitated slightly, but still told the truth and told him the details. In the end, after careful consideration, he believed that Yao Yao might not have died in the abyss. Perhaps she had other encounters. I believe she's still alive and will reappear in the world sooner or later. If she doesn't appear, I'll definitely go find her. I'll enter the abyss and save her. Chu Feng swore a blood oath. His heart trembled and ached every time he thought of Yao Yao. He absolutely couldn't allow her to disappear from the world forever. At the same time, he told Elder Yushang that Yao Yao's grandfather was definitely still alive. Back then, Chu Feng had personally hidden Yao Yao's grandfather who had lost himself in the depths of a planet. But after something happened to Yao Yao, her grandfather broke free from the seal and killed his way out. He roared like a wounded beast and disappeared without a trace. Chu Feng seriously suspected that Yao Yao's grandfather had recovered some of his consciousness. He might have mixed into the Yin realm seed and followed the people from the Yang realm to the Yang realm. Yushang trembled. He might have descendants and a bloodline inheritance. He let out a deep roar with tears streaming down his old face. He was both sad and happy. He almost shouted out loud, but he was forcefully restraining himself. His face was full of hot tears. Legend has it that our clan has a great origin. Our bloodline is only the weakest. The truly powerful ones have all disappeared and gone on expeditions. Yushang murmured and spoke of an even more ancient past. Because their clan was relatively weak, they were in charge of guarding that ancient artifact. Even so, they were incomparably powerful compared to other races. But if the other branches of their ancestors were still around, that terrifying creature who coveted their clan's secret artifact would definitely not dare to make a move and would hide as far away as possible. Unfortunately, the clan's history was too long ago. Almost no one believed that there were other branches with incomparably glorious past. Now, only Yushang's branch was left, and it was about to be exterminated. Yushang believed that only people like Yao Yao, who occasionally reappeared with a heaven-defying bloodline, could embody the glory of their ancestors. That was the style their clan should have. Get ready. I'll pass you the brand diagram, said Yushang. He wanted to give Chu Feng a big gift. I don't want it. I'll wait for Yao Yao to come back. Chu Feng shook his head. Take it first. I have 1 foot in the grave. Accidents might happen at any time. If I lose this brand diagram in my hands, I'll be a sinner, said Yushang. If you have the heart, you can comprehend it with her if Yao Yao reappears one day. Okay. In the end, Chu Feng nodded solemnly. Moreover, he encouraged Yushang once again to live on and wait for the day he could meet Yao Yao again. Chi. The space between Yushang's brows shone. Some kind of spiritual imprint blossomed and a hazy pattern emerged. It was about to fly toward Chu Feng. What did he see? In that secret diagram, a mysterious yellow gas emerged. It originated from an artifact and was surging with primal chaos. However, that artifact's pattern was too vague and hazy. He couldn't see it clearly, but during this process, he saw other familiar things. Chapter 13:13. There were 3 seeds. How could it be them? There was no way Chu Feng would make a mistake. He was too familiar with them. Right now, they were on him, stored in the stone container. The 3 seeds were all dyed in blood, carrying a bright red color. They slid out from the mysterious yellow energy, falling out from that artifact. Chu Feng's mind immediately became highly concentrated, his heart pounding. He wanted to know what happened endless years ago, in an unknown era, perhaps even an unknown great era, what these 3 seeds experienced, what kind of origins they had, what kind of roots they had. They were too mysterious. The reason why Chu Feng could step on the path of evolution was all related to them, thus allowing him to rise up. However, it was quite a pity. After the 3 seeds fell out from the artifact suffused with mysterious yellow energy, they began to accelerate, breaking through the restrictions of the void, directly flying away. Chu Feng was shocked. What kind of situation was this? In the back, mysterious yellow energy surged, continuously surging. That secret artifact seemed to be shaking, to the extent where it even released a heaven-shocking sound, making the great Tao of heaven and earth collapse, as if it wanted all creatures from past, present, and future to bow down. This was a type of unmatched great power. What kind of artifact was this exactly? It was rumbling, shaking endlessly. Mysterious yellow energy surged, becoming the source of all life source energy, surging into the heavens, as if it was going to wreak havoc in all worlds. That artifact wanted to collect the 3 seeds, but in the end, it gave up. How long? Mysterious yellow source energy rumbled. It was clear that something unforeseen was happening behind it, something unexpected happening. With a Hong sound, it shook intensely. In that instant, 10,000 whales were completely suppressed by it. It released special ripples, sweeping through the heavens and 10,000 worlds. Then, everything became temporarily quiet. There was blood that flowed, falling from primal chaos, extremely bleak. It scattered down from the mysterious yellow source energy, the bright red color dazzling. In a daze, the heavens all became still, past, present, and future all pierced through. The mysterious ancient artifact that looked like it was still, in reality, there was an unpredictable and terrifying great event happening behind it, one that might be able to change the past, present, and future. Chu Feng's eyes widened in shock, and he held his breath. He wanted to take a closer look, afraid that he would miss something. He had a feeling that this was a huge storm. However, all of this was blocked by this ancient artifact. It seemed to have cut off an expanse of ancient history, a period of time, an entire great era, blocking all of the bad things behind it. Finally, Chu Feng vaguely saw a corner of the truth. He saw some dim figures. It was a primeval battlefield, a boundless world, a tempestuous storm, and a single wave was sufficient to sweep through an expanse of the universe and collapse an epic. That was an unimaginably extreme battle. He saw the collapse of the starry sky, saw the end of great eras. He saw someone ring a bell, the ripples sweeping through 10,000 immortals. He saw someone using source chi to cut off the past and present. He saw a figure dressed in white that was as beautiful as a painting. She looked down on all the ages, looking down on all the realms of the heavens. Her style was exceptional. He saw a grand divine image that occupied half the cosmos that didn't conform to the natural laws of the heavens' collapse. Then, endless gray mist rushed out, wreaking havoc everywhere. Between heaven and earth, within the dust-covered ruined cosmos, the endless human figures all cracked apart and then exploded. Creatures struggled free and slaughtered their way out. Black blood flowed, making the entire cosmos deathly still and withering away. This wasn't a matter of a single world, not a battle of a single great era. They came one after another. In the end, endless light erupted. Behind the realms of the heavens, all types of brilliance surged. The heavens above split apart, something descending. Was someone traveling through the past, present, and future? Chu Feng couldn't see it anymore. Those scenes were a bit horrifying. What he saw was only a corner of the land, and it wasn't the final decisive battle, not the final bloody struggle of the higher levels. Dusk covered everything, making it hard to see clearly. An ancient path vaguely appeared. Chu Feng felt that it was familiar, like the reincarnation path. It passed through several great eras. In the end, it was a cold and brilliant redness. Specks of blood streaked across, immediately rushing over. It was as if they were suddenly reflected in the spectator's eyes, leaving them shaken. Chu Feng seemed to have seen some ancient cosmos collapse, saw many experts fall. His breathing almost stopped. He did everything he could to see everything through the mist. There was only a cold and brilliant redness in his eyes. His ears seemed to have heard a funeral song. There was a bell that exploded, a figure that had its back towards him falling down. Then he saw white clothes fluttering about, the figure of a woman with unmatched style. She was like an emperor descending into the endless ages, slowly disappearing into the distance, treading on the sky. Her body was dyed in blood, extremely lonely. In the end, there was only mysterious yellow energy flowing, originating from that artifact. At the same time, there was dazzling blood that streaked across that space. Now, everything became deathly still, motionless. All of the scenes froze. Mysterious yellow essence, all life source energy. Yushang sighed softly, subconsciously saying this. Then he was freed. The spiritual imprint was completely separated from the space between his eyebrows and flew out, disappearing into Chu Feng's skull. Yushang was somewhat at a loss, because a portion of his memory was stripped away. He forgot the main information regarding this ancient artifact. The imprint was just this tyrannical. When that spiritual imprint was separated, it erased the main clues left in Yushang's mind. What is that? Chu Feng's voice was trembling. He felt that he should have seen incomparably important information left behind by the predecessors, related to the great changes of the past, present, and future. However, he couldn't understand it. The level was still not high enough. Yushang was absent-minded, thinking for a long time before saying, "I don't know. This is a segment of imprint. You need to comprehend it yourself." Vaguely, that scene seems to have the approximate final coordinates of the secret artifact. Chu Feng calmed his mind and then looked again. Later on, he no longer stared at the mysterious yellow energy, but instead looked at his surroundings. There seemed to be an expanse of mountains and rivers, a magnificent stretch of mountains and rivers. Was this the coordinates of that secret artifact? However, right now, he wanted to know even more. What was behind that ancient artifact? What kind of world was it cut off from? He always felt that this ancient artifact was too heaven-defying. If he really found it, perhaps he would discover a brand new world. Chu Feng said to himself, "Why do I feel that this secret artifact seems to have blocked the passage between the heavens and 10,000 worlds, cutting off an era? Behind it is a magnificent blood-colored battlefield. If I really find it, perhaps it won't be so beautiful." He even felt that this was like filling up the eye of the sea, blocking the vast heavens and seas. His imagination ran wild, but right now, Yushang couldn't help him. After passing down the imprint, the traces of the memory clues in Yushang's mind were smoothed out, and he didn't have too many impressions. Then, Chu Feng shifted his attention. He thought of the scene at the very beginning. He saw 3 blood-stained seeds sliding down from that artifact, and then they broke through the void, thus disappearing into the distance. After that, all the scenes had nothing to do with the 3 seeds. They were stained with blood, directly and completely disappeared. What was the origin of these 3 seeds? After seeing those terrifying scenes, Chu Feng's doubts increased, and he was even more astonished at the origin of the 3 seeds. Were they things that belonged to the secret artifact's owner? Or could it be that the 3 seeds were won by the experts of the secret artifact's owner's camp from that terrifying battlefield? This was because after carefully recalling those scenes, Chu Feng felt that the 3 seeds were very important. Even the secret artifact flowing with mysterious yellow energy wanted to take back the 3 seeds. However, the 3 seeds escaped and disappeared without a trace. Moreover, it was also at that moment that the great battle became more and more intense, as if there were countless existences, peerless experts of different eras, and many great enemies attacking together. All wanted to cut off the path and obtain the 3 bloodstained seeds. How many seeds belonged to the heavens, to that battlefield? Chu Feng was much more relaxed. He once again immersed himself in his inner world, observing that imprint. However, after the 3rd time, he couldn't touch it anymore, and he couldn't explore it anymore. You can only look at it 3 times a year. Yushang reminded him. He could still remember the minor details, but he had long since lost any impression of the key secrets. Chu Feng was astonished, and then he became even more solemn. He no longer looked at it, and only recalled the things he had seen before in his mind, pondering silently. He was very shocked that the 3 seeds in his body were actually related to the secret artifact guarded by Yushang's clan. His mind wandered, thinking of too many things. How did the last 3 seeds fall onto Earth? Moreover, they were at the exit of the purgatory of the path of reincarnation. In addition, who had obtained the 3 seeds and put them back into the stone jar? No matter how he looked at it, the stone jar in his body wasn't simple. It seemed to be even more mysterious, and it had existed for an extremely long time. There was no information about the stone jar and the spiritual imprint on Yu Shang's ancestor's body. It seemed that the 3 seeds had slipped out of the secret artifact and flown away from the bloody battlefield countless years ago. Who had obtained them? Moreover, the person who had obtained the seeds shouldn't be simple. Otherwise, how could he have such a heaven-defying object like the stone jar? Chu Feng had a feeling that the stone jar in his hand might not be inferior to the so-called ultimate objects in the history of evolution. So much so that he felt that the stone jar might not necessarily be inferior to the secret artifact guarded by Yu Shang's ancestor. Some memories regarding the stone jar floated up in his mind. Back then, it was so ordinary and not a jar but a square. Only after going through all kinds of unforeseen events did the space inside expand. Only then did some special patterns appear on its surface, including the extremely mysterious golden symbols. Even the characters on the rough stone millstone in the radiant city of reincarnation seemed to originate from the stone jar. The characters were similar. At this moment, Yu Shang was somewhat absent-minded. One moment he was crying, and the next moment he was laughing foolishly. His hair was white, and his eyes were turbid. The main reason was that he had let go of the burden in his heart. Moreover, he knew that he actually had descendants who were still alive. Their bloodline hadn't been severed. He was so excited that he cried and laughed at the same time. All these years, he had been too depressed, and too miserable. Only after a long time did he come back to his senses. Meanwhile, Chu Feng had already woken up. Seeing Elder Yu Shang like this, he felt sad for him, but at the same time, he was happy for him. Yao Yao was his descendant, and she had finally brought dawn and hope to Yu Shang. There was expectation in his heart, and he was no longer lifeless. No matter what, Chu Feng wanted to protect Elder Yu Shang and let him live a bit longer. He wanted to strive to endure until the day Yao Yao reappeared. But Chu Feng's heart was also somewhat heavy. Was Yao Yao really still alive? He couldn't wait to return to the great abyss in the lesser Yin realm and jump to find Yao Yao. I want to become a peerless expert. I want to charge into the heavens in the shortest time possible and retrieve everything, he growled. Afterwards, Chu Feng thought about whether he had anything on him that could prolong Yu Shang's life. He was really worried that Elder Yu Shang would pass away in a sitting posture in the next few months. That would be too miserable. His heart was stirred as he thought of a possibility. He felt that perhaps he could try it. Perhaps he could change the fate of the lonely and helpless Elder Yu Shang. Chu Feng had a bloodline fruit on him. This kind of thing was incomparably heaven-defying. If it was before, perhaps it wouldn't change anything for an old man like Yu Shang who had 1 foot in the grave. Moreover, Chu Feng didn't think too much about this. He had always been thinking about some legendary rare great medicine that could prolong one's lifespan and so on. But today, Chu Feng found out that the primogenitor of Yu Shang's family seemed to have an unimaginably great origin. Occasionally, people with extremely special blood would appear in the family. Presumably, that was the awakening and activation of the family's ancestral blood. Since that was the case, he knew that the origin of this family's bloodline was extremely heaven-defying. Perhaps Elder Yu Shang could see the light of dawn at the end of his life. That kind of blood could baptize all spirits, so it was most likely that he could save himself. If the bloodline fruit could stimulate Yu Shang to mutate, transform, and activate that kind of ancient true blood, perhaps some things could be changed. When Chu Feng thought of this, he quickly took out the non-attribute fruit among the bloodline fruits. It could only purify one's own bloodline and let Yu Shang eat it. Yu Shang was startled when he found out what it was. This thing was considered heaven-defying even in the prehistoric era, but it was almost impossible to find in the current era. Even if there were clues, it would be controlled by the ultimate characters. How could others pick it? Senior, eat 2 more. I don't have anything else, but I have plenty of this fruit. Chufeng said in a domineering manner. Where did you get it? I got it after beating the martial madman's successor with a sneak attack. I plucked an entire tree of fruits and kept them all. Chufeng said. Yushang was speechless. He really didn't know what to say. Was this even possible? Chufeng said. Senior, take your time to eat it. I'll go out and take a look. I'll urge Celestial Venerable Qi Rong to open the secret realm he owes me immediately. When Chufeng walked out of the golden tent, he heard the sound of flapping wings. He suddenly raised his head and felt his hair stand on end. His heart trembled violently. It was a group of reincarnation hunters. They appeared on the battlefield and flew across the sky. Croak! Almost at the same time, he heard a strange and terrifying bird cry from the distant horizon. It actually made one's body go cold. It was extremely terrifying. At this moment, Chufeng saw Celestial Venerable Qi Rong's body tremble and almost collapse to the ground. What's going on? Chufeng was astonished. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.